Welcome, everyone, to Nerd of the Rings. It is a breaking news day, so I hope you're awake. West Coasters, I'm sorry. You probably don't even have your coffee yet. But we've got breaking news to discuss. It was about 14 months ago that we heard reports Middle-earth was returning to the big screen in the form of live action, that is. Obviously, we have War of the Rohirrim coming up later this year, but it was back in February 2023 that Warner Brothers announced that they were making 3 new Middle-earth films, not remakes of Lord of the Rings. I've heard a lot of people saying that they are not remakes of Lord of the Rings. These are untold stories in Middle-earth that have not yet been adapted. Back then, I'm quoting Variety here. They said studio leaders Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi have brokered a deal to make multiple films based on the beloved J.R.R. Tolkien books. The projects will be developed through Warner Brothers label New Line Cinema. Now, that deal, of course, was made with Middle-earth Enterprises, whose parent company is now Embracer Group. You remember a few years ago, they bought Middle-earth Enterprises, and they essentially own most everything except TV rights to The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure this will be very important for future discussion and speculation, the appendices that come at the end of The Lord of the Rings. And so, for the past 14 months, we've been left to wonder, what stories will these new films tell? And who is going to be in charge of telling those stories? Well, we got our first domino in that chain to fall today with the first quarter earnings call of Warner Brothers Discovery. CEO David Zaslav announced Peter Jackson is returning to produce the first of the new Middle-earth films. And not only Peter, but equally as exciting, returning are his writing partners, Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens. Now, we had Philippa on the channel when I was down in New Zealand to talk about War of the Rohirrim, and I've seen a lot of people asking if I heard anything while I was down in New Zealand, and despite my best efforts, I did not. They were very mum. So if they knew about this back then, they're very good at keeping secrets. But Peter, Fran, and Philippa are returning to produce more Middle-earth films. And I have to say, I am pumped. We'll see what the stories are. That's the big next question. David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers, did say during the call, I think I have the exact words here, said that they will explore storylines yet to be told. So these are not remakes, once again. The first of these films is currently in early stages of script development, and they anticipate it releasing in 2026. And personally, I have to imagine that they're going to go with December for the release. So I have no inside knowledge of this, but I'm just going to go ahead and work on the assumption that it's going to be like mid-December 2026, because why wouldn't it be? You know? Why wouldn't it be? Now, I'm very curious what your reaction is. We got a hop in chat here. 1,700 people in the chat right now. For me, I am experiencing pure unbridled excitement. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I was hoping that the team behind my favorite films of all time would be back in some capacity, and they are. And I'm excited about it. I'm pumped. And honestly, I would say I'm equally excited because of what this I mean, they didn't say as much in the call, but you have to imagine this means the films will be filmed in New Zealand. And you have to imagine that this means the wizards at WETA Workshop and WETA FX will be doing the effects for these films. I think those are pretty much locks. You know, nobody's announced anything. Again, it's like the December release. I'm just assuming, and I feel like it's a pretty safe assumption. Now, the big question, aside from the stories, and we'll get to that. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts, and we'll get to super chats here in a bit. And yeah, I'll get back to super chats here in a few minutes, and we'll go through and we'll discuss this and spitball. But the big question for me, aside from what stories are they going to tell, is how much of the band is going to get back together? Could we get John Howe and Alan Lee? Maybe. Maybe they'll be back in charge of the art. Maybe they'll bring in Ted Naismith this time. They tried to the first time and it didn't work out. Maybe Ted Naismith. Who knows? Will Howard Shore return to score these new films? That's pretty enticing too. And let's face it, one of the favorite things that I have on my bookshelf are those art and making of books for both trilogies that Daniel Falconer wrote. Maybe we'll get a new music book by Doug Adams. Who knows? I'm excited. I'm just in a state of excitement. I haven't been this excited. I'm trying to think, when was the last time I was this excited? It might have been when they first announced the Hobbit films. And then, of course, that was a bit of a roller coaster because we had Guillermo del Toro, and that didn't work out. But I still kind of wish we would have got a Guillermo del Toro Hobbit. That's a whole nother conversation. Would have been fun, I think. But honestly, yeah, for those of you just joining, it was just announced during the first quarter earnings call for Warner Brothers Discovery. Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens are back to produce the first of the new Middle-earth films, telling previously untold stories in Middle-earth. And they also said that they will be involved every step of the way. So there we go. With that, let's get into some discussion and see what your guys' thoughts are. I'm pumped. I'm just gonna say it. I'm pumped. Jonathan O'Connor, what films are Warner Brothers and New Line allowed to make? They have the rights to, and these are the rights through Middle-earth Enterprises. Middle-earth Enterprises has the rights to The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the appendices of The Lord of the Rings. So, most likely, what we're looking at is stories from the appendices. Okay? If you want, again, no inside information. I have no inside information whatsoever. But I have a feeling it's a pretty safe bet that whatever stories are going to be told are going to come from those appendices. So we should be looking at things like, gosh, there's a lot of possibilities. I'm sure a lot of people will say Angmar War. I'm sure, my personal pick, The War in the North. And let's see here. What else? We've got, we have War of the Rohirrim coming out, which is the Helm Hammerhand story. And that period of time with the Dunlendings. There could also be Freka. Or not Freka. I'm sorry. Fram. And the Eothade. And Fram slays a dragon. Spoiler alert. He slays a dragon. So let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys think. Fall of Arnor. Yep. Harad, that would be interesting. So Rune and Harad are some interesting places to play with. I think, another one, young Aragorn. Now, we've wildly speculated about this. Some of my friends at thewondering.net and I have speculated, this is the kind of chats that you have when you're just shooting the breeze. What would it be like if, Peter Jackson and crew are producing and they bring in someone who's been going into directing lately, perhaps by the name of Viggo Mortensen, to direct a young Aragorn film and handpick the person who would share the role with himself. It'd be interesting. But we could see Aragorn is said to have traveled far and wide, and it's a very open book. Like, there's not any details there. We get some details of him in Rohan and him in Gondor, which those alone I think would be pretty awesome. Tale of Aragorn and Arwen. Yes. I think that would work into that. Kinstrife in Gondor. Yeah. Return to Moria movie. There you go. Yeah, that could feasibly be on the table. We could get the story of Durin the Seventh. Durin the Last. I have people texting me right now like crazy. I'm like, I'm live. Do you want to talk to me? Come to the live chat. Fourth Age. That's an interesting one. So I think it would depend on the story. I think, Durin the Seventh is one of the few that you could do. The problem is, like, Fourth Age, the nice thing about Durin the Seventh and the Reclamation of Moria is that it's pretty separate from the events of Lord of the Rings. If you go into the Fourth Age, and I know, people look at it and say like, oh, Viggo and Carl Urban are older now. They could play older versions of themselves, and you could, adapt how it says in the appendices how they had to subdue, the people who are still loyal to Sauron after the War of the Ring. I feel like, Lord of the Rings ends so well. It's such a good ending that you don't want to reopen that. I don't think, personally. I think the way it ends is just so beautiful. I think you leave that ending. So, yeah, I think you leave anything that is after Frodo sails the West, unless it's totally detached from the Lord of the Rings, from Sauron and everything. So Reclamation of Moria could be interesting. What does that war look like? Gosh, the War of Dwarves and Dragons. What about wars in the Grey Mountains? Sorry, I need to get some polls going here. I want to get a gauge for your excitement level. I went live. I was typing up the article. By the way, thenerdoftherings.net, my new website. Check it out. I just happened to launch it yesterday. And then I was frantically trying to throw an article together at the news today. So check it out. My mods will share it in the chat. Let me get a poll going here for you guys. I want to get, and then we'll answer this while we're talking. Jeremiah O'Connor, thank you so much for the super chat. Are we able to get Silmarillion stories? We are not. No. We are not. Those rights lie firmly with the Tolkien estate. Now, I still have hope that the Tolkien estate, they seem to have warmed up to the idea. I mean, we've seen it with the Rings of Power series, where they've given a few things from the Silmarillion here and there. In season 1, there were some things depicted that you couldn't depict if you didn't have rights. So, like on a case by case basis, they've given those things out. So I'm curious to see, maybe someday. Let's see how these films go, Because I mean, if these films are bangers, why wouldn't they? All right. I'm going to give you guys a few options. Pumped, cautious, and dread. Is that? I'll put indifferent as one too. There we go. That's a spectrum. I'll give you a spectrum. So yeah, no Silmarillion stories for sure. At least as part of this. Who knows? Maybe someday. What else do we have? I would like to see practical effects and less CGI, says Mr. Zitromo1. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I think I do hope that, we I do hope that we get more of the practical effects. We saw the return of practical effects orcs in Rings of Power. Those were made by the WETA folks, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that we'll have, if there's orcs involved in this story, that we will have practical effects orcs. Okay, I'm sending some potentially breaking news. I'm getting sent some potentially breaking news. I'm gonna try to source check it real quick. Okay. I think we have an update on exactly what the film is. This is fun. We're having breaking stuff happening just as we're broadcasting here. We're finding out more stuff. Okay, so I wasn't like crazy far off by the idea of Vigo directing in order to in order to like oversee his character being involved. I'm going to try to share the screen with you guys. All right. But discussing film on Twitter is saying that the new Lord of the Rings film is titled The Hunt for Gollum, and that Andy Serkis will return as Gollum and direct the film. That's an interesting one. I did not have that on my prediction list, actually. So the hunt for Gollum, in case anyone is unfamiliar, this is basically the time period between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf and Aragorn are searching for Gollum, basically to conclude that Bilbo's ring is the One Ring. Now, I don't know the veracity of this, the validity of this particular tweet. They don't have an official source, so it doesn't have one of the big outlets tagged here. So we'll take this with a grain of salt for now, is what I'm going to say. And we've got our buddy Justin from the One Ring, who's said that he could come on. Maybe he can shed some light on this. Justin, big day, early morning for you out on the West Coast.
You woke me up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm sorry for my disheveled appearance. I'm not at the porn studio.
Peter Jackson is back, man. Peter, Fran, and Philippa are back. It is cause for you to get out of bed.
You woke me out of bed because you're not the only one that texted me. So I'm here to confirm that the very first movie is going to be written by Peter, Philippa, and Fran. It is going to be directed. I can confirm this right now. And
it's going to be directed by Andy Serkis?
Directed by Andy Serkis.
Okay.
Yep. Go to Variety. Go to Variety.com right now.
Okay.
The article is up. So it doesn't get any more official.
There we go.
Than this.
The Hunt for Gollum. Top story.
Let's see the front page. Variety. There it is.
I already clicked off the front page.
As official as it gets. I'm getting.
There you go.
Phone is blowing up. Text messages are coming in. Thank you for waking me up,
and
Matt.
It is written. It says that it's going to be written. Let's see here. Just making sure I'm reading this correctly as we just get this. Early stages of script development from writers Walsh and Boyens, along with Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio, our friends working on War of the Rohirrim right now.
Which you got the exclusive first interview with ever.
That's right. Yeah, Phoebe and Artie. We've got the interview here on the channel. Had a great time talking War of the Rohirrim with them. They gave us a lot of plot details, actually, about the characters involved in War of the Rohirrim. That was way more information than I expected to get from an upcoming film that hasn't had a trailer come out. Yeah, this is exciting. I'm very curious about this. This is obviously a smaller scale story, which is maybe a good strategy here, rather than go with something big. Philippa, in my interview with her, we were throwing around some ideas for the appendices, and she was very diplomatic about me kind of prodding for appendices ideas for future adaptations, and she kind of like turned it back on me and said, well, what stories do you see? And we talked about briefly the Angmar War and how that's a really big story, though. You're almost trying to compete, not necessarily compete, but you're trying to match that epicness of the original trilogy, which maybe that's not a good idea right out the gate.
This is breaking news, but it's long been in the works, as you guys may recall, when the rights to the movies were renewed by Warner Brothers just last year. Within minutes, the very first press release was from Peter Jackson himself saying Warner Brothers had been keeping him up on the latest comings and goings and news. Mm-hmm. So this was not unexpected. But Matt, let's want to get your opinion, I guess. Like, I thought that they might have announced something this monumental as a surprise one last thing at
At like
Comic-Con
Comic-Con.
Hall
Yeah.
H.
Right. Yeah. It is kind of crazy that this would just kind of casually be thrown in the midst of, I mean, it wasn't casually, like it was one of the first things they mentioned when they started talking about future slate. I was listening live to the investor call, and yeah, they went into Lord of the Rings was the first of their like longer term future projects that they talked about. But yeah, it does feel like a Hall H kind of announcement. So I was a little surprised there, I will be at Comic-Con here in a couple months, and for anybody at
Wait, is
Comic-Con,
that breaking
right?
news as well?
Well, no, it's not I mean, I don't think it's breaking news. I mean, I've gone the last couple of years, so yeah. If you're at Comic-Con, come say hi. Come say hi to me. I'll be hanging out at a booth. But yeah,
Uh,
it's true. Yeah, and okay, so the big question, because if we have the hunt for Gollum, presumably that means Aragorn at the very least will be in this film.
uh, the chat room is correct, and that's why I love this Lord of the Rings community. The chat room is correct. Matt, if you want to go to youtube.com and just search for Hunt for Gollum, you will find a short film,
Yes, a
which
fan
I don't
film.
know if
Oh
that
yeah.
qualifies for short film because it's 39 minutes long.
Okay. A
This is
fan
a
film, I should say. Yeah.
this is a full featured fan
Yeah.
film, completely unlicensed, but very well produced.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Uh,
been out a while. Yeah. No, I
it's been
remember.
out a
I remember
while.
it coming out. Yeah.
It's available for free on YouTube. Anybody could watch. So this is interesting that the first project that they're announcing is a remake of a fan film. I mean, everything
I wouldn't say
stems
a
from Tolkien, of
remake.
course, but
Yeah.
you would think this might be the first time a studio has recognized how popular a fan
Mm.
film is and says, "Let's go in that direction."
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
you've done many streams, Matt, where you talk about the ideas that you want, even in your Philippa Boyens
Right. Yeah.
interview, you say, you'd love to see some of these battles, these epic
Mm-hmm.
battles, and some things that you would want to see. But it's this is interesting because I don't even think Star Wars has duplicated any fan film before. They haven't even
No.
duplicated any of the expanded universe. I think in the last season of Ahsoka, when you see Zin, uh, no, the blue guy,
Thrawn? Thrawn?
Thrawn, yeah, that's the first time that a movie project has referenced another form of media, whether it be fan films or books. So this is crazy.
Yeah.
The filmmakers must have been partially inspired. I mean, they absolutely know Hunt for Gollum exists because it was such a big news and they follow the OneRing.net.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson has been a friend of the site, and Philip has been a friend to you in recent years.
Yeah.
So they absolutely knew about Hunt for Gollum. So this must be uh I can't think of any other time in the DC universe or any other franchise where the studio said, "Let's do the fan film, but better."
Mm. Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, yeah, this is an interesting choice, I have to say.
You're not
Like I
hype
said,
about it.
I mean,
Let's
no,
get into that. Let's
well,
get into
no,
this.
no, I wouldn't say I'm not hype. It's just, you tend to gravitate toward like the bigger spectacle ones, I think, just naturally. And looking at it from a studio perspective, I'd almost expect the studio to like make that a requirement or something. Like, we need big, grand, epic battles. And so to tell a smaller story like this, I think is an inspired choice. I'm just like,
You're not fully on board though.
No, I'm pumped. I am like, let's go. Let's go.
Well, I mean, we're going to say that about anything, but let's
No,
dive
I
into
mean,
this.
no,
Let's dive into this.
this is
Why
the
do you feel
team.
this is an interesting choice to do Hunt for Gollum first?
I think it's interesting because it is a smaller tale, because it's not on the scale of like large battles, presumably. This is hunting for Gollum. Like the big
A detective show?
Yeah. Like it's like a ranger.
Have you seen this man?
Presumably, it
Have you
is.
seen this duck? Have you seen this Gollum? Is that what this
Presumably,
movie
it
is?
will be a ranger. A ranger tale of Aragorn. And I'm in the back of I have so many thoughts going on in the back of my mind. Like, is Ian McKellen going to come back and be Gandalf again and set Aragorn on this quest? What will they do? Like, will they recast Aragorn?
Well,
I mean,
I think
Vigo's 25 years older, 20 years older
Iggy
now.
Baby in the chat room, and you have an amazing chat right now, and you guys, you fans.
Oh, it's hot. It's hopping right now.
It's coming in hot, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Higgy, I think, hit it right, and this is top of mind, Matt. And I'm sorry you couldn't join us on Tuesday, but on Torn Tuesday, the OneRing.net's weekly podcast, we did a celebration of the passing of Bernard Hill, and we got video
remembrance. Yeah,
from Mark Ordesky and Sean Astin, and we were joined live by Bruce Hopkins, who played Gamling, and we joined live by Jed Brophy, who was a Rohirrim, for 18 months with Bernard, and it Cliff cried. We all cried.
Oh,
we
yeah.
all cried by the end of the show because the loss is monumental, and I believe that might be one of the first acting deaths from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, we've also lost Christopher Lee and Ian Holm, as
right.
well as and we can't forget Andrew Lesney as well.
Right. Oh, and the linguist coach Jack.
Yes. Yeah.
He was one of the first to go.
But I think you and I have talked about, like, it's remarkable. And for those wondering, like, I am planning a stream for next week, and we'll do some reminiscing here on Nerd of the Rings as well. I've about Bernard Hill and what that character means to me, because that is, I've often said, when I choose favorite characters, I pick first, second, and third age, and I usually say Theoden as one that I really identify with and love. And so I'm not going to go down that road too far, because I might start getting emotional too if we start going down that road.
Yeah, so I mean, let's bring it back. Like I think Bernard Hill's death this weekend, and he was supposed to be at Liverpool Comic-Con with Orlando Bloom and the guys, and he just got sick at the last minute. Brings us emotionally and physically and practically. Like, it's been 25 years since they filmed these movies. And these guys are getting up in age, and I think the chat room already mentioned, Ian McKellen is getting up there. I mean, you just met him.
I did just meet Ian McKellen. And
that was
great.
These are old men. Vigo's getting up there as well. He's directing a new movie that's about to come out in a couple weeks. So there's only a few years left where movies can take advantage of the same actors. We only have a few years left to get Gandalf back in the gray hat. We only have a few years left of Vigo being able to run across the landscapes of New Zealand on a horse, or just run.
I was gonna say, run on a horse.
Run. But
I get you. Yeah.
so there's only a few years left. So this Hunt for Gollum makes perfect sense. It's the type of movie with the characters that we love, where the actors are still potentially able to play them. And with Andy Serkis directing, I think that's going to be an inspiration to Ian and possibly
Yeah.
Vigo to come back into the fray.
Yeah.
Me personally, after seeing Vigo's first and second directorial debuts, where he
Hmm.
wrote, produced, directed, and scored the movies, I am ready for Vigo to step up and be a
Mm.
part of Middle Earth in
Yeah.
a directing fashion. It's time to let Vigo put his creative energy
Yeah.
into bringing new stories to life. And
And
so that's my dream right now. I know you want
yeah.
like big battle scenes and you have some good
No, I
ideas.
I don't know. You're boiling it down unfairly to saying I want big battle scenes. No. I say that's where people's minds tend to gravitate. So like the fact that this is a smaller story, I think is an inspired choice, and I think it could actually be like the best route to take, because anything big and epic will naturally draw comparisons to the big epic stories that we've already seen. So this being something potentially different, I don't know. There could be, one thing I'm just off the top of my head thinking, could they incorporate some of those young Aragorn tales into this story, into the Hunt for Gollum? And, could this story end up being as much about or more about Aragorn, even though Gollum's the one in the title? Could it be more of an Aragorn story than a Gollum story?
Well, let me ask you this. Do they keep the title Hunt for Gollum? Obviously, it's already on YouTube.
Hmm.
It's a fan film. Is it a good
Maybe.
title?
I mean, it tells you what it tells you, the main action, like the main goal of the film, Hunt for Gollum. You've got I think it doesn't it's not vague. So there's that. We
Is
know
Hunt
that
for
somebody's
Gollum
hunting for
a
Gollum.
chapter name in the books?
That there is that in Unfinished Tales? Is there a I think
Chat room, let's see how fast you guys are to answer my lore queries. Gondor in the chat room says, "You honestly think Hunt for Gollum will win 17 Oscars? No. Why would PJ come back for all that for something that won't win?" Look,
I think
here's what
like
we've heard
winning
from
17 Oscars, for one thing, no film has won 17 Oscars. So like
well,
if you want to
the
compare, the
trilogy in
trilogy
its
did. Yes.
total,
But this is a
yeah,
single film. Like 17 would be insane. 11
and
is insane. And like you can't expect every film to match what the greatest
And
trilogy
they
of all
can't,
time
they
did,
won't, and they can't because that was the main story. Everything
Yeah.
from here is ancillary. It's small.
Yeah.
It's other tales referenced in the book. Warner Brothers has the same exact rights that
Mhm.
Amazon Studios has. They have
Yeah.
every word in the Lord of the Rings book
Just
and
for
every word
films.
in the
For
Hobbit
films.
book
Yeah.
for films, and for animated films and for live action films. But something we talked with Peter, Philippa, and Fran about when the Hobbit movies were done, and because we were at the premiere here in Hollywood and stuff like that, and
I
all
know you're
they,
super old. You were at all the stuff
yeah,
20
you
years
see this
ago. I get it.
gray
Yeah.
beard. I'm like, come on, I'm trying to get my Gandalf on. The Peter recognizes that that was magic in the bottle for him
Mhm.
and for fans and for Tolkien. And he's proven his worth to us and to everybody with that Lord of the Rings trilogy. So he doesn't need to win another Oscar. He doesn't. He just won Emmys for the Beatles Get Back documentary. So he's already done it. He doesn't need to go back there again. Now he can just
Yeah.
play. It's kind of like I don't know what a good reference is, but when you're in little league and you hit the game-winning home run, you'll always be known as the kid that hit the game-winning home run. And if you remember Married with Children, Al Bundy only talked about the game-winning touchdown for the entire rest of his life. You did the one thing. Peter did the one thing. He doesn't need to do it again. Now he can just be creative, take his time telling the stories that he wants to tell, and explore the lore. wherever he is interested in.
Mhm.
So this is an exciting time where I
Yeah.
feel like the stakes aren't high. And by the way, when they made Lord of the Rings, the stakes weren't high either because no fantasy movie had ever won an Oscar. In fact, Star Wars never won an Oscar
Right.
for directing.
Yeah.
So there was no expectation that these silly little fantasy movies 20 years ago were going to win any Oscars. So we should not have any illusions that, oh, we're back in business for an Oscar winning film. No, I just want to be entertained,
But
and Peter's good at that.
but I mean, here's the thing. Like even the Hobbit films got Oscar nominations. Like, you know,
Technical Oscar nominations, yeah,
yeah. I
for
mean,
visual
those
effects and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Those are Oscar nominations,
I'm
right? Best
sorry I was
yeah.
giving a speech, folks. I'm
Yeah.
just so excited, and
Justin,
I woke up at 5:30 and I went to bed at
you just
2:30.
now, but like here's the thing. The thing that I go back to is like Oscars are awesome, and I love every year watching the Oscars as if I am the 1972 Dolphins rooting for other films to not hit 11. There's some like grim satisfaction in that when I count down, okay, how many times like this next Oscars, it'll probably be Dune 2. How many Oscars does Dune 2 need to not win for them to hit, to be able to have 10, no more than 10, you know? There's some grim satisfaction. There's some satisfaction being able to say, my favorite films of all time are the most Oscar winning. Like that's cool, but it's also not the end all be all. You know,
And it shouldn't be the
there's so
goal.
many great films. Like you look at how they changed the Oscars because The Dark Knight got snubbed
Right.
and they were like, "Oh, we're going to nominate more films." It's like so that the more popular movies can get nominated. That didn't happen. Like it took what 2 years until, we're back to mostly movies that nobody sees getting nominated, you
Look,
know?
I just
But
think that we should set our expectations as fans to say, to be like, the goal isn't Oscars. We've already
no,
done it.
the
We're in
goal
the record
is
books.
is
We're
a
in the
great
record books.
story. The goal is a
Yeah,
great
just
story.
tell a great story,
Tell a great
produced
story
well.
that's tell a great story that feels true to Middle Earth. That's all I'm asking. And
Put it in writing. Is there a way
I
to put
think
a lower
I think
third? Like,
that's I
that's
think
all
that's
we
the
want.
goal. And I think that will be the goal, from talking again. If you guys haven't seen it, my interview with Philippa Boyens, it's one of my favorite interviews I've done. It's we talk about the old films, but we also talk about, the new films or the new War of the Rohirrim. And she talks a bit about, the approach and how you go about adapting Tolkien, and specifically with War of the Rohirrim and these other stories that they're going to be telling. I think it's very applicable because we're specifically talking about how you take a nugget of Tolkien, an outline of a story or a few paragraphs in the case of War of the Rohirrim, and how do you expand that while making it feel true to Tolkien? And we talked about that for a little bit, and I think they had some good answers to that line of questioning. And yeah, so
That's great.
I'm
There are
still
people.
pumped. I'm still pumped because I liked what I heard, and there it is.
The and people in the chat room, again, if you're just joining us, The Hunt for Gollum is confirmed. We've seen it on variety.com. This is as real as it gets. Hunt for Gollum is going to be the first spin-off movie from Warner Brothers, directed by Andy Serkis, and produced and written by the team that did War of the Rohirrim, and of course Peter Jackson.
And Andy Serkis on Instagram, he just posted, "Wheels back, precious." I added the flavor for you, but that
uh,
was the caption.
Matt,
Hobbit, the hunt for Gollum. He says, hashtag the hunt for Gollum, hashtag working title.
so
So
there's our answer. We were just asking,
that
like,
is the
do
working title. We're
Working title.
breaking news left and right here. That is the working title, according to Andy Serkis. So there you go.
Let me ask you this.
We
Do
should make sure. I want to make sure to get to some super chats here. And apologies if I had to roll
I know.
through
I'm
some of
just
these.
reading the regular
Yeah.
chats.
No,
Like,
this is good. We're getting a balance. Sam Wood says the prophecy of Morgoth's dagger Daggerath. Again, that falls into the Silmarillion sphere. So that is firmly within the Tolkien estate. They control those rights. That is not on the table for Warner Brothers films. Nothing in the Silmarillion is on the table here. TRIG Ireland, thanks for the super chat. Mayor Sam and his family and his eventual ride to the Havens. It would mostly be slice of life stuff, but there's a cameo King Elisar and his queen.
that's
There
a
you go.
great idea. That's a nice little
It's like
small film.
yeah, it's like it's probably the vibe that we're gonna get with that Tales of the Shire video game later
Yeah,
this year.
100%.
Just
100%.
slice of life Shire. Just I'm sure people would like it. Would be like the movie version of meditation music. You just put it on and you just live in the Shire with the characters
I'm
for
reading the
2 hours.
Instagram. We can confirm Andy Serkis has tagged WETA Workshop on his post about Gollum. We can confirm officially WETA is in the
Weta's
mix.
back.
WETA is back in the business of
All
Gollum.
right. So, recap for those of you catching up. Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens are back to produce. They are producing a film that is in early script development, pegged for release in 2026. The movie will be The Hunt for Gollum, which is a working title, and it will be directed by Andy Serkis. And Andy Serkis tagged WETA, so they are involved as well.
Living in LA, we're fortunate enough to get early screenings of movies, and so I've seen the brand new Planet of the Apes movie,
Oh,
which
I
does
really want to see
not
that.
feature Andy
Andy,
Serkis,
no.
even though he was part of the last 3 movies. Of course, Andy was Caesar, and the main character of the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy. Some of the best films ever directed by Matt Reeves. So
Yeah.
I am confident in Andy's ability to do the best motion capture you've ever seen. For some reason, those Planet of the Apes movies and the new one look so real.
Oh, yeah.
And the last act, the third act of the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movie, it feels like I'm watching Avatar 2. It's so good. I'm completely lost in the environment and the characters. Yeah, I'm watching something real. I don't know how they do it on the budget that they do, but like the technology has progressed that WETA has been working on, where they're able to crank out these Planet of the Apes movies, and it looks
I wouldn't
realer
say
than real.
crank out. Like, there's a
There's
7-year
4
gap between these
movies.
last two. I know, but there's a 7-year gap between these last two. Like,
Well, there was a pandemic
I
and they
mean, give
switched
them
directors and stuff
credit.
like
Like,
that.
they're not just like they're putting a lot of time and effort into these films. But yes, they look incredible. They honestly are some of the best. One of the best series of movies in recent memory. I would say. Uh, let's see here. Toads Morgan says, "Thank you for the super chat. The only feeling I have until I see a preview is straight fear that it's going to be rushed. I hope that it has more practical effects, not like Rings of Power." Now, to Rings of Power's credit, they did have the practical effects orcs, which I was a fan of. I did really like the orc designs in those. And you can't argue with the folks in the orc suits. That's for sure. They had Jed, they had Luke, they had all those guys. Some great orcs. But yeah, I think practical effects. I don't know. I feel like looking at things like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and those recent Apes movies, you can kind of see a nice blend of practical and CG. Those actually lean pretty CG heavy with the apes involved. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think there were lessons learned on the Hobbit films where we had the CG orcs, and I have some measure of faith that there'll be a good mix. Like you can't just say like no CG, because that doesn't happen nowadays. What you want is good practical and CG that mesh well together to where you can't see those lines of
Okay,
blur
to
that
give
line.
to give a sense of, like, some people in chat are saying, "This feels rushed. How can they get a movie out in
Mm,
2026?" I'm just looking at the brand new Planet of the Apes movie. The casting was done in June 2022. Filming began in October of 2022, and now it is May 2024. So we can expect, at minimum, the quality of the filmmaking uh, to be on par with Hunt for Gollum. We can expect the
mhm.
same quality and effort put in to Hunt for Gollum in the same amount of time. So this is not rushed. This does not rush, especially if they have a near completed script already. So
Yeah.
the timelines work out, and it does not
Well,
feel like this is a
and
quick crash grab.
I think, comparing this to, like, think of the production timeline of The Hobbit, which was famously rushed compared
Right.
to Lord of the Rings.
A lesson
Like,
learned.
yeah, yeah. I I don't think this is just my personal feeling. I don't think that Peter, Fran, and Philippa would sign on if they were walking into a situation where they didn't have the time they needed, you know? Like, I don't think that they would sign up for that,
Right. Again, Peter
you know?
Jackson sold WETA for over $1 billion just a couple years ago. He's just won a bunch of Emmys
Mhm.
for his Beatles work. Peter doesn't need to
He's
work
finally moving
ever.
on from the Beatles, though. Come on, jeez. Like, the Beatles
Well,
are fine, I get
Peter's
it, but,
latest
like,
Beatles project just dropped yesterday. So
that's
let's not get
right.
ahead of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
The brand new
He's
Peter
gonna
Jackson
multitask now.
remastered Beatles is on Disney Plus as of yesterday. So do get a chance to watch Let It Be. It's a brand new remaster of a 1972 documentary.
Yes. Now, Beatles aside, let's get back to the middle discussion here.
Let's get back to Golems.
Yes. Okay, I wanna make sure we get through these super chats too. Scouring of the Shire film, that's an interesting one that would, bring in the original hobbits and everything. It wouldn't fit though, is the problem, because, like, in the films, we see them come back and the Shire is just as they left it, like, the whole thing is they actually do save the Shire in the films. In the books, obviously. I love the Scouring of the Shire. I think it would be really cool if at some point down the road, and I've advocated this for years, that if there was a Lord of the Rings animated series or animated series of films, like a long form adaptation that was able to include some of the things that had to be cut out. Like, I want an entire episode that's Tom Bombadil. I want the Tom Bombadil episode. And, if you don't like Tom Bombadil, you can skip that episode, whatever. But I think something like that could then adapt Scouring of the Shire, but I think it would have to be detached from these films.
Well, fans will get the chance to see Tom Bombadil put to screen for the first time in season 2 of Rings of Power, which we still don't have a release date yet. We now have a release date for the next feature film movie, and we still don't know when the second season of the TV show is. Different studios,
Different
different
studio.
strategies.
I do wonder if there'll be, like how the most casual fans, will there be confusion that there's this TV show and there's these movies? And, like, because I don't think, it's like, do casual fans differentiate between MCU and Madam Web? Or do they just see
They,
Marvel on
they
the
do.
title?
Yes, they
Or,
do.
they do differentiate. Well, I know that, like, nerds differentiate, but, like, you know, your brother or somebody who has no idea, who's like, "Oh, I saw an Iron Man once. It was good." You know, does that person look and say differentiate? So I'm curious to see how people differentiate, because
Well,
obviously this is two
let's
entirely different, like, even more detached than Sony and Marvel. So yeah. Anyway,
Let's
let's
ask the chat. Is there a way to do polls on this? I'd love to get a poll from and or
Mr. You've been
maybe you guys
streaming
could
on
just.
your channel for how many years and you don't know if there's the potential to do polls? Unbelievable.
I'm a simple
Unbelievable.
man in a complicated
Okay.
world.
Well, while I'm pulling up a poll,
The
let's
poll
yeah.
is, should all forms of Lord of the Rings, including the TV shows from Amazon and the movies from Warner Brothers, be in the same cinematic universe? Should there only be one cinematic universe?
I
What do the
I don't
fans want?
even need a poll. I don't even need a poll to tell you, Justin. The answer is no. They should not be in the same cinematic universe. There you go. They shouldn't. They're two separate studios, two completely different creative teams. No. Like they're yeah. See, the people are saying yes or no. Now, like in an ideal world, would these things be cohesive and like make sense with one another and all be under one creative force? I think yes. But as it stands right now, you have two completely different studios, two completely
So,
different creative teams. Like they're their own thing, like yeah, like
we should start thinking about stuff as the movie universe and then stuff as the TV
yeah,
universe.
essentially. I mean, yeah. Now, I mean, I think it would behoove, especially because, Warner Brothers, those films are the existent. That's the one that everybody knows, It would behoove Amazon, I think, to not contradict things in the Warner Brothers is doing. But like if you're Warner Brothers, I think you don't even worry about what Amazon's doing. Like you do your own thing. You focus on your own thing.
Um,
So 007 Games, Balin's Expedition horror movie. That's another one that's really interesting, actually. Like that's a nice, small, self-contained story. Again, like we're talking, it's interesting these things that they've picked to adapt. We have the War of the Rohirrim, which is animated, and it is a smaller, detached story from the Ring and from Sauron, but it's also self-contained. But it's also got like big drama in it and battles and everything. So it's a little bit of both. It's detached, but it also has some epic nature to it. Balin's Expedition would be a freaky movie, I think, because it could essentially be a horror movie. So 007 Games, that's a good. I think that's a good one. Whether it's maybe that'll be one of their animated offerings. Who knows if they'll do more animated offerings. It's nice, concise username. Thank you so much for the super chat. $20 super chat. Thank you. After the travesty that was the Hobbit trilogy, I got excited for the Rings of Power, only to feel like a fool of a took. I'm dreading this unless they get good feedback from experts. Like Shippy, Flieger, Tolkien professor.
I don't know. I feel like the Tolkien influence has been proven with this writing team. And
yeah, like I think there's value in, like we know what the high water mark is. We know what the potential is with this team. We've seen it. The Lord of the Rings trilogy.
And Philippa Boyens, who you just interviewed, and her daughter, who's involved writing the Rohirrim.
Yeah.
I mean, they have it in their bones as much as any Tolkien scholar. Sure, they haven't taught a lecture at Oxford on Tolkien, but you don't need to understand what Tolkien really is about. And I think there's infinite value to the team. But by the way, let's remind everybody, the Rohirrim movie coming out in December has John Howe, Alan Lee, and all the Tolkien experts in the artistic department still in play. So the expectation is they're just going to
some of the original WETA folks are involved too.
Oh yeah, and WETA. So it's like they're keeping the team together.
Yeah.
And the movies speak for themselves as far as the quality to Tolkien. So
Yeah,
Do you need
I
another
don't
cook
think
in the
you can
kitchen?
yeah, I don't think you can equate this as a one for one, the same situation as when Amazon was announced, because that was a complete unknown. And so, you know, the like with this, these are known quantities to a degree. Like we know what Peter, Fran, and Philippa and Weta and Andy Serkis are capable of. We've seen it, which gives me much more excitement and less trepidation.
There was a
That's what
comment
I
in the
think.
chat room saying, "Do you think they learned their lesson from the Hobbit movies?" And again, I just want to go back. Peter Jackson, he's now a billionaire from selling his company and tools. He's won Emmys, he's won Oscars, he's won Grammys. He's three quarters of the way to an EGOT. He doesn't need to work anymore. He's done everything. He's reached the pinnacle, uh, and this is just a passion project. So he's not going to let
I think,
himself get
yeah,
stressed over rushing things. If it needs to take a little more time, he has the power to say, "This is gonna take more time. Sorry, Warner Brothers, but we're gonna have to delay it 6 months." That's what I'm saying, like, the
yeah,
power structure that Peter currently has as just being that creative visionary that is
yeah,
still winning awards. Um, did they learn the lesson on The Hobbit? Yes. You
yeah,
see it in the documentaries on
yeah,
the Hobbit movies. Like, they know what happened, and they
yeah.
know how to prevent it.
I think yes. I think there. So a couple things that I've kind of observed over the years of talking with people involved in both trilogies and going down to New Zealand and hanging out with some of those folks. First of all,
Humble brag.
middle no, I'm just saying I'm prefacing saying this isn't just me making up
As
stuff.
an insider in this
No,
business,
that's not what I said, Justin. You're the
I'm
Hollywood guy, not me. Um I the first thing that really stuck out to me is that middle they truly do live and breathe Middle Earth down there. And it has become a part of the DNA of New Zealand for one thing, but specifically the people down there at WETA, the people involved in these films, they have such a deep passion for this world. But also, there's also self-awareness, and they're very down to earth, and they acknowledge, where things fell short on The Hobbit. And I think they are self-aware enough to know the things that fell short and why they fell short, and I think they'll adjust accordingly. And like you said, you got to imagine Peter Jackson's at the point in his career, in his life, where he does what he wants to do. Like he doesn't have to take a project for the money. Like I'm sure Warner Brothers will pay them well as they should, but it's not going to be the deciding factor. Like this isn't going to be a thing that he does just for the money, because frankly he doesn't need this job for the money.
I see a few comments, people just joining the chat again. I'm happy to be a guest here on Nerd of the Rings. My name's Justin Sewell. I'm with theonering.net. And we've all just learned. In fact, Matt scooped everybody because he was up earlier
I
than
was
everybody.
I was
Congratulations, Matt, that Peter Jackson has announced that he's going to take over the Lord of the Rings franchise in kind of a Kevin Feige super producer role. And the first movie to get the green light is The Hunt for Gollum. It will be directed by Andy Serkis.
who
Directed,
also returns as Gollum,
who
obviously.
also returns as Gollum. So
And he
those
tagged Weta Workshop. He tagged Weta in the post, so we can assume that Weta FX will be making
Weta's back in
Gollum,
the mix, and of course, the writing team kind of overseeing everything, including the script for the Gollum movie, is the same one that worked on the War of the Rohirrim.
Yes,
Artie Papagiorgio,
that's
Phoebe
and Phoebe
Gittins,
Gittens.
and
Yes,
Philippa Boyens, Oscar winner Philippa Boyens.
that's right.
Let's put that title on
And
her as she's
and
earned it.
Fran Walsh. It
And
says
Fran Walsh,
early stages
Peter's
of script
partner.
development from writers Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, along with Phoebe Gittens and Artie Papagiorgio. will explore storylines yet to be told. And now we know that the first one is The Hunt for Gollum. So there we go. You are all caught up. Now, LT Haldmir says, wait, Vigo, Orlando, Ian, Hugo, and Liv all return? Potentially, yeah. Potentially. Maybe.
Here's what I've seen out
yeah.
of all of these reunions that the actors are doing at conventions and meeting with you fans and doing photo ops and signings is there is a deep, passionate love for each other, and all of the actors are now recognizing 25 years later how unique and special filming Lord of the Rings was.
Yeah.
And I absolutely 100% believe that every actor would jump at the chance to jump back into their characters in Middle Earth. I mean, there is no question that they would take whatever pay cut or whatever pay bump, or put their life on hold and move and go to New Zealand for another year, because the love is there. And we saw that on our remembrance tribute to Bernard Hill this last Tuesday, where so many actors, even videos of Bernard himself, brought to tears just thinking about reuniting with people at conventions. I mean, it was an emotional time. So there is deep, deep love amongst everybody here. And like nobody had a bad time on the Lord of the Rings set. It was tough. People broke their foot. People broke their toe. But there's only good memories. And that's so exciting. This is one of the few franchises where every single person involved has nothing but good things to say about working on this film franchise.
Now, we do have a statement in that Variety article that's been brought to my attention. Jackson, Walsh, and Boyens added, "It is an honor and a privilege to travel back to Middle Earth with our good friend and collaborator, Andy Serkis, who has unfinished business with that stinker, Gollum. As lifelong fans of Professor Tolkien's vast mythology, we are proud to be working with Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, and the entire team at Warner Brothers on another epic adventure."
Matt, you and I have been talking a lot offline lately about Mike DeLuca. I don't know if I should.
Mike DeLuca, who was involved in bringing up one of my favorite shows of recent memory, Shogun. That show
His
was
baby.
That was a dang
probably
good show.
The front runner for all the Emmys this year.
I think
incredible show.
So flipping good. Yeah.
But a little history on Mike DeLuca. He was 25 years ago an executive at New Line Cinema. He is the one that helped sign the Lord of the Rings deal for New Line Cinema. And it's incredibly lucky that the guy that helped bet the whole studio on Lord of the Rings 25 years ago is now in charge of Warner Brothers Studios. Just the cycle of life and pure luck and coincidence. We have the president of Warner Brothers Studios is as big a Lord of the Rings fan as Peter as anybody. We have someone at the top who is creatively and inspired by Tolkien's works. This isn't Mike DeLuca is not a bean counter, that went to Wall Street and now runs a studio. He is an authentic, creative executive who loves Lord of the Rings and got the movies done in the first place. He is the best person to have in charge of your studio when you're doing Lord of the Rings movies. We are so lucky to have someone at the highest point in leadership to make sure that the budgets get approved, that the budgets support the Lord of the Rings level of storytelling. This is the guy.
The timeline, and that they get a proper timeline. I think that a lot of people I've seen, in the chat and on Twitter and Instagram and everything have brought up, the unfortunate timeline with The Hobbit, how Peter kind of had to take over after Guillermo del Toro had to back out, and they didn't change the release date when that happened, and the movies totally changed. It wasn't like he just picked up. There's totally different designs for creatures involved in, and
And there was studio
locations and
meddling.
everything.
The
Yeah.
head
Oh, yeah. Oh,
the head of
yes.
Warner Brothers at that time during the
Mhm.
Hobbit movies demanded a love triangle with
Right.
Tauriel and
Yes.
so many other notes from the studio where it's just like, well, we have to have this or we have to have that. That made no sense. Mike DeLuca is not that guy. He's a
Yeah.
he just came into control. He was hired a couple years ago to run Warner Brothers Studios under the big CEO, David Zaslav. So there is financial commitment, there's creative commitment, and we're not going to get any stupid studio notes from Mike DeLuca saying we need more love
Lying
triangles.
trust. No love interest for Gollum, guys. Not happening. He
We
has
don't want
one and
our
only,
own Yaddle.
his one and only precious. That's all he has eyes for. Um,
You don't think
yeah.
Gollum dated? You don't think he
No,
found a
shut up.
love through all
That's
the
enough. That's enough of that. Don't even bring in. Get out of here with your soap opera stuff. Jeremiah O'Connor
save it for
says,
TV?
when we were talking about folks, how some of these folks are, getting up there in age, and if there's a chance to bring them back as their iconic characters, brings up John Rhys Davies. He implies is getting up there. I think John's a spring chicken, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. I did get to see John at a recent con after, we've obviously had him here on the channel a
You
couple
dropped this
times.
name.
And what? No, what? This is. I am plugging my interview so that people watching this can go watch a really fun interview with John Rhys Davies. I'm
Link
sorry,
in the
Justin.
description to
I
that
don't have
interview.
the link in
Link
the
in the
description yet.
description.
If you're watching this after the fact, maybe I'll get it in there. But John is another one of those who I think has a unique position, like you were alluding to, where they've realized how special Lord of the Rings is. Like John is one of those people who's been in a ton of movies and TV shows and everything. And he was in Indiana Jones, which is a big thing, obviously. But even being in Indiana Jones, when he's asked on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, Inside of You, he was asked, like, what's your favorite project? And he said, it has to be Lord of the Rings. It has to be Lord of the Rings. Like, he knows. So I think he's known for a while. And I think, even the ones who are younger at the time are realizing how special it is to be involved in something like that. And I think, I don't know. I think them going to cons, like people like John going to cons and stuff, it like really brings it home in a new way to talk to these fans 20 years later, and how integral those movies are into people's lives and how beloved they are.
Not just fans, John Rhys Davies was the only of the original Lord of the Rings actors to attend the world premiere in London of Rings of Power. And it was amazing to see Gimli, the dwarf that we all fell in love with, meet Durin, the dwarf that we're
Yeah.
all falling in love with again now on television, and to see them. I was there when they first met and shook hands. I was standing right there. I'm like, this is a generational thing,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing. There's so much love in the fandom and
Yeah.
between the actors and the productions. Like this community is so loving,
Yeah.
about
Tolkien fandom is the best fandom. I said it before. I'll say it again. I'll always say it. It's the best.
I have an answer to this question on the
It's just
on
one.
the thing.
Yeah.
It's just one.
Hunt for Gollum is just one movie. Now, it is interesting to note, I'm pulling this up here. Let me pull this up because I just noticed something in the previous paragraph. We had just read about Peter Jackson's statement about Andy being involved. In a statement from DeLuca and Abdi, it says, "We are honored they have agreed to be our partners on these 2 new films."
Oh.
So that's kind of buried in there.
So he's
They've,
not a Kevin Feige thing.
well, I mean, 2 for now, at least. What's interesting is, yeah, that's the only reference to 2 new films. And they're saying, the first of which is,
Well,
Hunt for
let
Gollum.
me add some context there, reading between the lines, Matt.
Mhm.
they have a movie to promote this year, War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah.
Of course, Peter Jackson was not involved in this wonderful
Right.
anime adaptation. It's the first time we've seen Tolkien put to animation since 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, there is an interesting situation where if they start to say right now, we welcome Peter for leading the chart, taking over the Tolkien cinematic universe, the TCU, um, it would set up a weird expectation of like that this anime movie coming out soon was Peter.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that statement right there may just be mean that they're not just planning two movies, but let's get through the anime release. Let's get Rohirrim done. Let's get it out in the market
Mm-hmm.
this December. We'll spend Christmas time back in Rohan, and then you'll start to see the language change to say, and hopefully Peter's taking more of an active role in the entire franchise, the long-term 10 and 20-year production pipeline that will be Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
So I think that's just a
It does.
safety. It's a
Yeah.
safety thing right
Well,
now to
no,
say
this
two
okay,
movies.
so I'm getting sent articles by my mods as we're speaking here. Man, this is like breaking news coverage on the news,
Do we
We're
have
just
red alerts
developing stories. No,
emojis?
we don't. We have no emojis, we have no sounds, nothing. There are zero bells or whistles here on Nerd of the Rings. We just give it to you straight. There's an article on IMDb. It says the first of two new Lord of the Rings films at Warner Brothers, working title Lord of the Rings Hunt for Gollum, will be directed by and star Andy Serkis. So there you go. So it's interesting because we've heard that there's three films.
No, we
Three.
wish there was three films.
Now, in the news back in a little over a year ago, it said that there would be three new films.
Well, that
Now, unless they're
War of the
counting
Rohirrim.
War of the Rohirrim.
Oh
If
yeah,
they're
yeah.
counting War of the Rohirrim, maybe. But it sure sounds like
There's one more.
this is it sounds like there's one more that Peter, Fran, and Philippa will be involved in, according to this article, at least.
Matt, it's an interesting decision to make the first movie um, uh, kind of a spin-off from the very poorly reviewed Gollum game. Can you comment on that?
Spinoff? What is You're out of your mind. Should I even answer that? Because now you've planted that seed in people's minds. There's people out there who are probably saying, "Oh, this is going to be like that Gollum." Like, yeah, if the Gollum game had Oscar winners writing it, maybe it would have been better.
If the
I don't
motion
know.
capture was Andy
If
Serkis,
if WETA was making the Gollum, good Lord. Okay.
I tell you, maybe that's what inspired WETA to jump in the video game development with Tales of the Shire, their very first
They were
video
like,
game.
good
They
Lord.
might have seen the
If
Gollum game
nobody
and
else
like,
is going to make a good Lord of the
we need
Rings
to do this
game, we
ourselves.
might as well do it. Not let the fans go through this misery.
Do we need to play the game to understand
No,
the movie?
God, no. You're better off not. Don't. I made it through 2 streams. I was gonna play through the whole game. I made it through 2 streams, and I went back and saw the community post here on the channel where I was like, guys, I really don't know if I can fit. And people were like, it's cool, man. Don't worry. Don't put yourself through it.
Oh man, wouldn't it be funny if in the movie there's just a scene where Gollum falls
No,
off a cliff twice in a row and it's
no,
just a little nod?
no. There would be no nods.
No
No,
nods? No.
no. The sooner that game is forgotten, the better. All right.
The chat room says the
Soul
Hunt for
Joe.
Gollum 2026, and for some reason, I read that in a Russian voice, like the Hunt for Red October. Like,
Oh, there's some fun Photoshop work. Someone can spoof Lord of the Rings with Hunt for Red October. That'd be a good poster mashup. For the Google it, you younger people. It's a great
oh my
movie.
gosh,
Sean Connery.
I'm so
All right.
old, Gandalf.
Souljo1, thank you so much for the super chat. Remember, the title character in Lord of the Rings doesn't get a lot of screen time. So referring to Sauron there. So this is going back to my point where, yeah, the title is Hunt for Gollum, and Gollum will definitely be part of it. But I think it could very well end up being an Aragorn story. You know, it'll be more about the people hunting for Gollum than, it'll be more about the hunt than about Gollum. That's kind of my prediction anyway. Jonathan O'Connor, how cool will it be to have some actors sing like Gollum's fishing song or Aragorn singing of Beren and Luthien?
I'm disappointed
Embrace the singing.
I'm disappointed that Jonathan did not mention the amazing songs we got in the first Hobbit movie. I mean, with all the gravitas of Thorin Oakenshield and the dwarves lamenting, their homeland. I mean, we got some amazing songs in the first Hobbit movie. So let's not discount that. I think Tolkien is magic when you have those charming moments, but done with honesty and integrity on film. I really like the songs.
There's an earnestness, yeah. And when you embrace that, when you embrace those special things about Tolkien, it makes for movie magic, as we saw. Left-Handed Jedi. It's an interesting title. Username, War of the Jewels movies. That would be awesome. Again, we're talking Silmarillion there, guys, and that is off the table. Can't do it. Not yet. Maybe someday. If there is a day where it is announced that there are Silmarillion movies coming or whatever, Silmarillion adaptations of any kind, we will be here live streaming immediately because that will.
But if they want to do a movie inspired by War of the Roses combined with Romancing the Stone, and it's Thranduil.
Okay, that's even too old for me, man. I don't know. Isn't that like an Indiana Jones-esque?
I really need Lee Pace back as Thranduil. That's all I want.
Okay. You just leave it at that. That's another character that, if they were to ever, go into certain time frames, with some of these stories, Lee Pace could come back as Thranduil, which would be good. Larry, thank you so much for the super chat. Made you look. I will look all day at random super chats for $20. Thank you so much. Robe Cart says the Hunt for Gollum working title. I want more lore.
There's a lot of lore in that story, and there's
some pretty good stuff
film on YouTube that you can watch.
So 900 miles, folks. So we know that Aragorn does. Spoiler alert: Aragorn does capture Gollum, because that's how in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf knows what happened to Gollum when he was captured by Sauron. So when we get that little flashback of, we see Gollum's fingers in the air and he says, Shire Baggins, Shire Baggins. That whole thing, that is because Aragorn captures Gollum and Gandalf is able to, interrogate him, essentially.
Russell, the name of the fan film on YouTube is just called The Hunt for Gollum.
The Hunt for Gollum, yeah.
And it's free. It's 40 minutes long. It's well produced.
It is
amazing.
It's a well produced fan film.
My phone is blown up. I don't know about yours.
So JL, yes, says I would walk 900 miles. Yeah, so that was what I was going to bring up. Aragorn has to take him.
That is a joke.
Aragorn has to take. That's a song though. That still comes up.
Yeah, that's as old as the jokes I'm making.
No, it's different. You're referencing movies no one has watched in like 15, 20 years. So Aragorn captures Gollum in the Dead Marshes and has to take him 900 miles. This could be like I wouldn't say a buddy road movie because they're not buddies, but Aragorn has to take him 900 miles from the Dead Marshes to Thranduil's realm in Mirkwood. So yeah, Lee Pace could totally be back as Thranduil for this. 900 miles with Gollum in tow. And you can only imagine.
Movie with Viggo Mortensen. It was called The Road, and it was depressing.
This is different. This is different. Like,
Y'all remembered
Can you
that, right?
imagine? Can you imagine? Like my favorite bit of lore trivia from that is that in order to cross the Anduin River, Aragorn ties Gollum to a log and like drags him behind him as he, swims to the other side of the Anduin River. Like I can only imagine like Gollum in Two Towers when they put the rope around his neck, how he's just like screaming and complaining the entire time. I can just imagine that for like 900 miles with Aragorn.
A few people in the chat are saying Andy Serkis, director. Well, folks, he has been
Yeah.
directing. Andy Serkis is an accomplished director. He's directed visual effects movies. He's directed stuff, and Vigo as well. Vigo has directed a couple movies already. So all of your favorite Lord of the Rings actors have stepped up in their careers in recent years and are directing, and they're actually pretty good at it.
I actually so if you're curious, so chronologically here, Andy Serkis was the second unit director of the Hobbit films,
That's right.
if you recall. So there's a lot of scenes, if you watch the appendices for those films, you'll see Andy directing second unit. He also directed the second Venom movie, the Carnage movie with
Woody
Woody
Harrelson.
Harrelson, and a
That was
movie
fun.
that I think kind of got the shaft because Disney released their Jungle Book movie, and then this one got delayed. But Andy Serkis's Mowgli movie, which is the Jungle Book story according to the original book and not the
It's a
Disney
book
cartoon.
loyal
Yeah, yeah.
version. Yeah.
I enjoyed it much more than like the Disney new Jungle Book live
And
action.
the chat room is split on the Venom movies. I think they're a lot of fun. Again, you talked about, do people mistake the Sony Marvel movies with the broader MCU?
Yeah,
And I think if you just tell a good story and have fun, if you entertain us, that's number one.
right.
Just entertain us. We're giving you our hard-earned dollars at movie ticket prices right now, where popcorn's $25. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the hunt for Gollum popcorn tin?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're in a new age. As long as they don't do anything like the Dune popcorn bucket, then we're fine.
I'm not afraid.
Let's all right. Squabob says we need Justin as Tom Bombadil in movie number 2.
Oh, hey,
Oh my gosh.
Dilly
You
Doe. I
you
don't
don't
even know what.
you guys don't know Justin well enough. He hasn't
The
been on
Tom
here enough.
Bombadil movie will be written and directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Stop. No, we've broken enough news on this stream that you can't go saying stuff like that.
Fake news. That's fake news. Do not quote me on that. Let's just leave it here between us.
Yeah.
That's a joke. Joke, folks.
Hey,
We got
Left-Handed
laughs.
Jedi just gifted 5 Nerd of the Rings memberships. Thank
A
you so much.
Jedi.
Yeah, Left-Handed Jedi. Yeah, I wonder
Name
if
a
they're-
left-handed Jedi. Let's
I
put you
don't
to
know.
the test. Who's a left-handed Jedi?
I thought they'd be ambidextrous because, I don't know.
Because they're what?
Because of the Force? I don't know. Because they're yeah. Getting crafted. Wonder if we'll get Ian McKellen Gandalf. That would be fun. I would be down for it. Heck yeah. Why not? I don't think he'll. I don't think. In this particular tale, like I don't think he'd be a huge part of it, but I think he would definitely be there. Maybe part of the inciting incident to get Aragorn underway on this journey to track down Gollum. Yeah, and I do wonder. Yeah, I'm very curious. Like, it's the hunt for Gollum. That's the working title. But like, could it incorporate more of the young Aragorn stuff? Like, could we see some of Aragorn's time in Rohan or his time in Gondor, and then it leads into him tracking down Gollum? Or will it be a smaller, more self-contained tale of, this kind of road ranger movie?
Maybe we should maybe you can do this on a future video, but I'd love to know, Matt, what characters are in the Hunt for Gollum story?
I mean, it depends on what exactly you adapt, but the I would say minimum you'd have Gandalf giving Aragorn this mission, hey, need you to help me track down this Gollum guy because I need to know if this ring is bad news. Um, Obviously, Aragorn is a big one. Aragorn, he tracks down Gollum. So we've got Gollum, obviously. And then on his way back, again, depending on what all you depict, on his way back, he does swing by Lothlorien. Those are friendly areas. I believe he even says the Beornings help him in the latter part of the journey to get Gollum. He has to cross back across the Anduin River. And then he goes to Thranduil's halls. The whole reason in the books that Legolas is at the Council of Elrond is because he's reporting that Gollum has escaped Mirkwood. So Legolas would also be fair game. Legolas and Thranduil
We're
would
getting
be
the
fair
team
game.
back together, guys, and
We
Legolas will
could.
be played
Very
by
well.
Jacob Elordi.
What?
No?
Who's that?
Let's do some fan casting. A lot of people in the chat room are saying these guys might be a little too old. Orlando might be a little too old for Legolas. Vigo might be a little too old for this part of Aragorn's journey. So, do we want Austin Butler as Aragorn? Talking like
I'm not good at
Elvis?
these fan casts. You know what? I'm gonna leave the casting in the hands of the people who have done an amazing job in 6 movies so far of casting people, because the cast, and people can say what they will about the Hobbit movies, but that cast is legit. Like, Lee Pace's Thranduil is awesome. Martin Freeman was a fantastic choice, taking over a role, like an established role.
That was great casting.
Yeah, and I know a lot of fans were calling for it to begin with, but the fact that it actually happened and everything, it was fantastic. Taking over for Ian Holm, talk about big shoes to fill. And then Richard Armitage as Thorin. Oh, great stuff, man. Yeah.
It seems that the chat room is overwhelmingly against de-aging, and I feel like I agree. And I think there were some directors recently who said, we can't de-age. I mean, if the best directors in the world, Martin Scorsese, can't fully get it right, what hope is there for anybody, right? Even though I will say WETA Workshop and WETA Digital and Peter Jackson's effects team are some of the best in the world to do face replacement. You guys might recall that when Paul Walker unfortunately died during the Fast and Furious movies, WETA was hired to replace Paul's face on his brother's body because they kept filming after a break. They decided his brother was going to step in and finish the movie, and so WETA are
that was
some
a
of the
small
best.
part, though.
It was almost all done, but there's been a bunch of other projects since that. WETA really is good at face replacement. That's different than de-aging, and it's different than deep fakes. So could they do deep fakes
will
of
remain
younger Aragorn?
hesitant. I will remain hesitant about de-aging because I've seen too many examples of it not being great. So until it is indistinguishable from the real thing, it's just it almost always lands in this uncanny valley for me. I think of how many de-agings they've done with Star Wars. Looking at how Luke Skywalker showed up,
and that's unlimited
training
budgets.
Luke Skywalker showed up especially when he's the cameo at the end of whatever that was, season 2, and then he shows up in Book of Boba Fett, I think it is, where he's training Grogu. It was just, people, I saw a handful of people saying that they thought it was amazing, and it was uncanny valley for me. I could not. So I tend to lean more toward, if it needs to be either de-aged or recast, then, and I know this is going to sound like sacrilege to say anyone Vigo play Aragorn, but I think I lean toward recast. Unless
I think
you
so
think like
too.
with makeup and stuff. Like if you can get it to where like I'm okay with suspending disbelief and it's like, yeah, he looks a little bit older, but it's fine. It's like Legolas showing up. Like, yeah, he doesn't look, he's not a scrawny teenager, you know, not saying he's okay,
But
skinnier
by the way,
teenager. He's
Hunt
more
for Gollum.
bulky, Obviously Legolas has like, more muscle mass in The Hobbit than he does in Lord of the Rings. And like, it's fine, you know, it's fine. Like I
And by
can
the way, the
suspend my
Hunt for
disbelief. I'd
Gollum,
rather do that than
this
CGI.
movie takes place right before the Council of Elrond. Like when
Yeah.
we talk about young Aragorn, no, we're talking about the same time and place as Aragorn, basically. I
Yeah.
mean, this isn't a young Aragorn movie. This is right before the events of Fellowship of the Ring, leading in to the Council of Elrond. So
Yeah.
we need an Aragorn that looks and performs like Vigo 25 years ago.
Yeah. Like I said,
And
if they can get
you
him
put a
close
wig on
enough,
him.
if they get Vigo close enough, like I'm fine with that. Like obviously, all these people that returned for The Hobbit
I don't think he's
were
too
10 years
old.
later. Yeah. Like I don't know that he
Jared, I
is.
appreciate
Yeah.
the support and the comment, but I just saw him at an industry event here in LA. He's healthy, he's
Yeah.
fit, he can still
I
run.
say, you maybe you do some makeup or something to like, go
Who's
old
the
school
best at
with it.
makeup? WETA.
Let's
You
do it.
know, like
I say you give Vigo back in there. Heck yeah.
Get Vigo back in there, because
If yeah.
he hasn't
If it's
aged a
that or
day.
like the artificial de-aging. Okay, so of the 3, I'll give the 3 options. So Vigo straight up plays him with maybe some makeup. Vigo plays him with de-aging, like
Computer
significant
graphics.
de-aging. Maybe you could probably do some like subtle de-aging and get it by. But if it's significant, like we've seen in Star Wars, especially, or if it's recast, then number one, I say like Vigo with some, very minor de-aging, physical effects, maybe light CG. Number 2 would be recast. Number 3 would be the whole digital replacement face thing, like they've done on
The other
Star
thing that
Wars.
I
Not a fan of those.
personally would be okay with in the Hunt for Gollum is including a side story, a B story, a secondary story in that
Mm.
movie that explores the romancing of Aragorn and Arwen. I want to see a little bit of that. And Liv Tyler, she still looks stunning. Vigo, he still looks like the gruff ranger that's 80 years old. So
Mm.
they are, for some reason, the gods have gifted them a great aging. And I think Liv could absolutely still
Oh
play
yeah,
Arwen
absolutely.
today.
She could. Yeah, 100%.
So the
I
Hunt for
say, yeah,
Gollum is the time frame that would allow us to maybe explore some of that love
early.
story,
Yeah, I
the
think you could.
romance,
Yeah,
and I think we all need to feel some of that love again. I think there's just so much opportunity there to there's just so much opportunity there to get the
yeah.
old actors back in the same roles.
It could. Yeah, Liv Tyler. Yeah, that's another one. Like again, like I said, it depends on how much you expand the film. Like I gave you kind of the bare bones. These are the ones that make the most sense. But yeah, you could totally work in the early story of Aragorn and Arwen. And
Again, the
remember,
chat
there
room
was there
Miss
was
Man
there,
Reek says we need a 40-year-old Aragorn. Folks, Aragorn's 80.
yeah,
Vigo
yeah. I
isn't.
mean, he looks younger than 80 though. He's technically
Uh, I'm okay
87.
with
He's
current
87
Vigo.
by
I'm
the
okay
books.
with
He's
current Vigo
yeah,
as Aragorn.
100%. Yeah, I think he could pull it off. I'm not going to count out Vigo for being able to pull it off. Come on, I think we give Vigo back. Game on. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Interesting
Um,
comment from the chat room. Matt. What's your opinion? Someone said bring Kate Blanchett back as Galadriel.
Why? Yeah, why not? I
Why
mean,
not?
if he's gonna pop up, with the young Aragorn and Arwen story, you can like a good chunk of their early story does happen in Lorien, and like I said, he does pass by Lorien on his way to take Gollum
I'm
up north
telling you,
to
the
Mirkwood.
screams in the
Why not?
theater if Arwen shows up, the screams in the trailer if
Oh yeah,
Arwen shows up in a trailer.
or
I'm in.
Galadriel. Yeah, any of
I'm
them.
I'm so in.
I want to see Celeborn though. In I want Martin Serkis to come back, even if he doesn't say anything. Just bring it, just so we know where is Celeborn. Is he all right? We need to see him. Uh,
I think
Brandon
Rings of
says.
Power is going to cover that.
Brandon says, I want to see a movie about what happened to Erebor after the Battle of Farmar. That's the one that I am really pumped about the potential of. That is the War
What
in the
does
North
happen?
movie. Oh man, there's a whole northern campaign
What?
during the Battle of Pelennor Fields, while the Rohirrim are fighting for the survival of Gondor. Up in the north, there is a siege of Erebor with an army of Easterlings from the north. Also, there are battles between Dol Guldur and Lorien. I want it so bad. That's the one I want. That's the one I
Wow.
want. I'm saying it right now. Danny DeVito is Aragorn. Come on. Oh goodness. All right. Articraft. Hey, shout out to Articraft. Does the contrast between War of the Rohirrim, Hunt for Gollum feel similar to the contrast between The Force Awakens and Andor, returning characters versus new stories? Contrast between War of the so War of the Rohirrim is that The Force
Anyway,
Awakens, or that's The Force Awakens of
that's a
the
feature film, and Hunt for Gollum. I mean, we're talking about two feature films
Well,
with
I think it's
your examples here.
returning character. So they're saying, Andor is like a new story
The,
set
the
in that
more
world.
appropriate comparison is Force Awakens and Rogue One, two
Yeah,
feature films.
that makes sense.
But
Well, yeah,
one includes all the characters that we know and are familiar with the Skywalker saga,
yeah,
and Rogue One is a totally unique story about another part of the
right,
world going
yeah.
on.
I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, I think you could make that comparison. That Hunt for Gollum has the returning characters, whereas War of the Rohirrim is pretty much, we have Eowyn coming back as a narrator, but everyone else is a new character in that story.
War of the Rohirrim
Mostly, yeah.
is animated.
Yeah.
The movie coming out this December is animated in Japan. It is going to look and feel like an anime with anime style designs and characters, but it is being designed by WETA, John Howe, Alan Lee, and all your favorites from the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Tim Talk, how far away are we from first stage depictions of Middle Earth? I'd love to see Melkor on the big screen in an adaptation. It's similarly, man, so many people bring that up anytime there is movie or TV news. Who knows? That is all entirely
Not in our lifetime.
yeah.
That's my prediction.
Oh, come on, have some faith. Well, you are older than me, I guess, but so maybe you've lost hope.
Rude.
I don't think you're actually that much older than me, but yeah, that is entirely in the ball is in the court of the Tolkien estate there.
Harry Styles for Aragorn.
Bradley Cooper might work as Aragorn. He's good at looking like he slept in his clothes. Let Vigo play King Elisar in flash forwards.
Is that the
just
era where like they hunt hobbits for sport?
What?
Don't you
What are you
remember?
talking about?
Like in the Fourth Age, they hunt hobbits for sport.
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
I guess I'm making this up.
Yeah, you are. Jayashina, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, legit cool podcast. Sent a couple supers. Thank you so much. Oh, and here's one with with some text on it. There we go. Can't wait to see my friends Artie and Phoebes take this. And yes, I found out through news and not a text. Ha! Keep up the Lord's work, Matt. Kiora. Thank you so much. Shout out to Legit Cool Podcast. They had an interview recently with who was it? Gino. It was Gino and somebody else. Yeah, it was Gino and somebody else. I'm blanking on who else was on that. But I think it was that podcast episode where they were sharing that someone was with like James Cameron, and they said, "Man, you're a genius," and James Cameron said something like, "No, Peter Jackson is a genius." And yeah, I was like,
I mean,
that's pretty high praise.
Jim don't lie.
Jim,
Big Jim don't lie.
What about Vigo's son, Rumpelstiltskin? What about Vigo's son?
Henry Mortensen. We were just on the DMs with Henry this week. He just got married, so congratulations to Henry on finding love and happiness.
Congrats to Harry.
So happy. And of course, Henry helps run Percival Press, which is Vigo's publishing company, and Vigo's basically Twitter and Instagram. So Henry helps run that, and there was a wonderful tribute from Henry and Vigo from Percival Press. So if you look that up on Twitter and Instagram, Percival Press.
And I would imagine they're the ones who released Vigo had like a book of photography published fairly recently in the previous few months.
In fact, I was just looking at old photos, 25 years old photos, because I'm that old, of Vigo's first art book release party. I have photos from that. It was the first time I ever met Vigo, and that's where the photo of Bernard Hill is published. He's also got this amazing photo, one of my favorite photos ever, of Legolas putting in his contact. Orlando Bloom putting in his contact. You guys might have seen it. It's like Orlando Bloom as Legolas putting in his Legolas contacts. Vigo's an amazing photographer, and that's why I would be so excited if they got Vigo to direct a spinoff of Lord of the Rings.
But first, he's got to come back as Aragorn. We're casting it right here. We're saving that. We're saying, okay, guys, you're probably trying to make this decision about whether to recast or de-age Vigo. Just bring him back. Just bring back Vigo.
I'm already getting emotional seeing behind the scenes videos, or maybe a marketing video of all the actors coming together for the first table read and seeing each other for the first time on set. Not a convention, not a pub, but like seeing each other on set in character, and just the emotions of that, because we all know that they all love each other. And this is just, I'm telling you guys, this is the best thing ever. Keeping Andy Serkis in the family, and now he's directing. They're trying to keep, Warner Brothers is keeping everything in the family. It's like that thing, that New Zealand thing, that Peter Jackson thing worked so well, even at its most chaotic on the third Hobbit movie. It's such a machine of quality storytelling that I've always argued since day one that yes, the Hobbit movies are a different standard than Lord of the Rings, but the worst Hobbit movie is better than 95% of the output of all other Hollywood.
I often say, for all its faults, the fact that, you look at those appendices and what they were up against in terms of timeline, in terms of studio interference, the fact that there is still a cohesive story with legitimate heart behind it, like Battle of the Five Armies is my least favorite of the 6 Middle-earth films. But at the end of the day, I still care about Bilbo Baggins.
And Thorin's death.
And when and so that's what I was going to say. And when he mourns over Thorin's death, that still hits. And that's saying something in a production that had its trials and tribulations, as have been documented. So basically, like, I feel like Peter Jackson with one hand tied behind his back is still better than a lot of what we get today.
And
So that's why
Big Jim said it.
so
Big
that's
Jim
why
Cameron.
that's why I am, unbridled enthusiasm is what I'm saying right now. That's what I'm feeling. Unbridled enthusiasm. I'm not
Dan,
holding back the
Dan,
excitement.
that's exactly what we're talking about. Are we scared that it's going to be more of the same? That's exactly what we want. We want more of the same. We want the same team doing the best work that they can with the resources and the time that they need.
I think he's referring to more of the same, like how, The Hobbit fell short, and more of the
But
same of what we're
we
talking
just
about.
said,
Yeah.
like, The Hobbit might have felt short, but Peter at his lowest, at his shortest, is still above
Right.
everything else that Hollywood
I
puts out.
still like Unexpected Journey, I still feel is absolutely delightful. Like,
And we got
I
songs
love it.
in a
Yeah.
feature film. We got men singing, dwarves singing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We got
Dwarves.
dwarves
Yeah. Not
screaming
men,
lament.
dwarves. Um, Gouger says, "Is Hugo Weaving too old to play Elrond again?" Nah. Bring him back too.
No. In fact, he's returning to his Tu Wong Fu character, I think. So
Oh.
he's not too old to do reboots.
Not reboots, but
Not reboots.
re
Oh, clarification.
yeah.
This is
Don't
not a
It's not a
reboot.
reboot. Don't say
Nobody is
things like
remaking
that
Lord of the Rings.
because there's so many comments about messing with perfection and remaking Lord of the Rings. They're not remaking
It's
Lord
in
of the
the
Rings.
contract. They'll never remake
They're
it.
not doing it. Berto Berg, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being up early to share this news with us. What a good way to begin a Thursday. I agree. What a great way to begin a Thursday, or any day for that matter. I am so excited for this because, like I said, it's been 14 months since they said, yeah, we're going to make more Middle Earth films. And then it's been silence ever since for a year and 2 months. I am pumped.
Yes, no remakes really is in the contract. We
All
reported
right.
on it when it was first signed.
So, we just had, sorry, the chat is going like at a good clip, so it's hard for me to bring up the regular chat messages, but I'm trying to like keep a post on them. So someone asked, what exactly is the news? We should preface that again, give you
Oh
the
yeah,
lowdown once again,
catch people
because
up.
we've been going for a couple hours here. So for new people just coming in, just waking up on the West Coast, maybe.
Yeah, look at this.
Peter Jackson, it broke this morning during it was announced during the Warner Brothers Discovery investor report phone call, quarterly phone call with investors, that Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens are returning to Middle Earth by producing another Lord of the Rings film set in Middle Earth, and it is The Hunt for Gollum, we have since discovered. And it will be directed and starring Andy Serkis as the titular Gollum. We have been hypothesizing what that story could look like. We think that Aragorn would play a major role, while the title would be Hunt for Gollum. I think it's fairly safe to say Aragorn would probably be the main character of this film. And we've also discovered that working on the writing of this project are not only Walsh and Boyens, but also War of the Rohirrim screenwriters Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio. So there you go. I think you are caught up. I think that's most of it. There's
And
also
and I'm
there's
happy
2
to
films.
join Matt's channel and his chat. My name's
Yes, and
Justin
this is
Sewell with
Justin.
the OneRing.net. We've been breaking news for 25 years. All the leaks, and Matt scooped everybody today by being up and listening to stock market investor phone calls. So congrats, Matt, on your first big scoop.
Well, hey, I figured I can't let you guys have all the fun. You've had so much fun over 25 years. I need to get up early while you West Coasters are still in bed.
What do they call that?
On the
Early
off
rise,
chance,
rising grind. You're a rising grinder.
early
Hit your
bird gets the worm.
stock app.
It helps I'm 3 hours ahead of you over here
Well,
on the
yeah,
East Coast. So,
that's
um, Angel says, this was some of the best news I woke up to this morning. Can't wait to see what PJ and the team come up with. And Stillschken says, are we sure it will be live action? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
I'll confirm that if Variety isn't yet. Warner Brothers greenlit the animated Rohirrim movie that you'll be seeing in theaters this December during the pandemic years ago. And that was before the brand new contract. And the brand new contract is made with the intent, the new license is made with the intent of no remakes and a bunch of feature films, actual studio summer winter blockbusters. So and director Andy Serkis has directed a couple feature films, not animated, but his films. I mean, he was in Planet of the Apes, some of the best looking CGI ever. And so we totally predict Hunt for Gollum, this first movie. Also, part of the news is it's confirmed from the studio trades that 2 movies are in development. In addition to War of the Rohirrim. So we have War of the Rohirrim this Christmas. We have Hunt for Gollum in 2026, and another unknown movie that is currently being explored in the writing stages.
Akshay, thanks for the super chat. Do any of you use a large family tree of the Tolkien characters as a reference? Do you think that would be useful for people getting into the Silmarillion? I would say, yeah. That would be useful if you are reading the Silmarillion, and there's a lot of elves with names that start with F, and so it can be very confusing. So yes, I recommend Tolkien Gateway online is a great reference if you get mixed up with character names.
That's how I read Lord of the Rings.
That I know. Yeah. One of these days you'll read the actual book, I'm sure. But
I read a book when you can read Wikipedia pages one at a time.
Gosh, unbelievable. You're in the wrong stream for these kind of comments. You need to keep that stuff to yourself, man. All right.
Watch Tuesday, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for this quality conversation
for people who hate books and don't want to read.
But I'm counterbalanced by someone equally as well read as Clifford Broadway, Quickbeam from The One Ring, who has written books called The People's Guide to J.R.R. Tolkien. He's written and produced a documentary that won a bunch of awards called Ringers, Lord of the Fans. I mean, he can go toe-to-toe with Matt on Lord of the Rings trivia and his deep knowledge of it. So I'm just a volunteer. I am just one part of this community. It's not just it's fun.
All right. Now, one thing that I don't think that people have really caught on to, and I was just thinking, I've been thinking this in the back of my head for the last few minutes here. This film will release in 2026, the 25th anniversary year for the Fellowship of the Ring. You have to do the math on that.
Numbers check out.
The numbers check out. My math.
Check out. Correct.
The fact check is approved. 25th anniversary. Now, I have been advocating for the Mithril edition of The Lord of the Rings for some time because I want to see, even if it's not like a new cut, I'm not saying Mithril cut, I'm saying Mithril edition. So the extended editions I'm good with those. They are fantastic. That being said, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't see in our earlier conversation. This ties back to young Aragorn and Arwen is a shot. There's at least one shot of young Aragorn and Arwen in the footage that we see in the behind the scenes, but is never shown in the films. I just want the deleted scenes. I want to see the deleted scenes with, finished color grading, preferably. And
what other deleted scenes are you aware of?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, well, there's obviously the Arwen at Helm's Deep stuff, which you wouldn't edit back into the film anyway. So that would purely be deleted scenes. There's rumored that there was a wedding of Faramir and Éowyn because there's, that Instagram post from years ago that Miranda Otto posted. There is a shot of Gimli looking at some gems, possibly in his new realm of the Glittering Caves. There's a shot of Legolas wandering through Fangorn, possibly after the events of Lord of the Rings. There's those shots of Frodo in a vision that Faramir has of him turning into a golem-like creature. I think there's more. There's definitely more, and I'm blanking on them now. Éowyn fighting orcs in the Glittering Caves behind Helm's Deep.
That's right.
Another one.
Oh, good question from the chat room. Matt, what do you think of the idea? I mean, dearly departed Christopher Lee, Saruman is alive during the time frame of the Hunt for Gollum, and Saruman's getting corrupted at that point in time by Sauron.
By that time, he's
Come on,
already
give me
down.
that one. Give me that.
He's already down that road. Maybe
He's going down
maybe in the film universe, he's already
right.
He's
So,
getting corrupted. But in the book timeline, he's already well into his corruption phase because.
Well, in the film universe, you could show that's one thing that they could show. So the question for you, Matt, if this is a live action film, which we believe it is, do they do Saruman as a recasted new actor, or do they do what Star Wars did and
I don't know
bring
if they
Grand
need
Moff
Saruman.
Tarkin back?
Yeah, that was Christopher Lee's buddy Peter Cushing.
Right. So would you be okay with CGI?
It just
Saruman?
I don't see. Okay, so this is my opinion on this. I'm not going to pretend to have the correct answer. I am not a big fan of the resurrecting actors who have departed. I think in that instance, like with the Grand Moff Tarkin, I think they should have just recast. Part of what makes these performances and these people special and what makes life special is that it's finite, and Christopher Lee's performance as Saruman is amazing. It's iconic. Sadly, he is passed, but we still have that performance, to go back to and to appreciate. And any CG like it wouldn't be his true performance because it's not truly him. So it would be a mere shadow of what his performance would be. So I think
I
in
have
that
to agree
instance,
with the chat room. Like I am okay with CGI duplication and resuscitation, but the chat room is on point saying Charles Dance, the actor that played Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, he has a nice gravelly, deep voice. You put a big beard on him and big freaking, dark gray eyebrows and a big wig. I think Charles Dance could be close enough sounding and provide his own performance. And especially if there's a chance to do more movies in this universe, we need another Saruman.
Maybe. I mean, it depends on the stories. Like, I don't think Hunt for Gollum demands that you have Saruman. So, yeah, I don't think.
Will Saruman show up in War of the Rohirrim animated form?
Now, he totally could because, again, spoiler alert, folks, but spoiler alert for these books that have been out for 70 years. For folks like Justin who don't read them, spoiler alert.
I like movies better.
But the timeline lines up really well to where like that could be a final moment, because after the events that are presumably depicted in War of the Rohirrim, after that story resolves, is when Saruman first comes to live in Isengard, where he is given the keys of Orthanc, and the Rohirrim and Gondorians welcome him in, thinking like, yeah, we need an ally on our northern borders because Rohan just had this terrible invasion from the north, from the Dunlendings, and Saruman will help protect us from that happening again. And little do they know what one day will come from Isengard. It's great stuff. So yeah, maybe he might show up. Abigail Remington, thanks for super chat. A film of Estelle's early life named Heir of Isildur. So yeah, I think a young Aragorn is definitely a story with a lot of potential, and I would be really excited. And I honestly, like I said, I wonder if Hunt for Gollum is essentially the young Aragorn story. Maybe not. Maybe it is just a really self-contained, like really narrowed down. This is just about hunting Gollum, but they could work in elements of young Aragorn here. I don't know.
I don't see it. Like you wouldn't hire Andy Serkis to direct.
Why not?
Anything less than just a Hunt for Gollum and
Why?
Gollum's story.
What do you say? Why do you say less? Anything less?
Because when 6 years ago, when the rumors came out that the TV show might be young Aragorn, Cliff and I did a ton of research on what that story could be, and young Aragorn's story is really cemented in his relationship with his mother, and very young Aragorn is defined dramatically by like really young Aragorn, not like 10 years before the events of Fellowship. So, this announcement saying the Hunt for Gollum, we have a time frame in place of when this movie is taking place, and that just isn't young Aragorn. And I think there's so much more to do with Aragorn in the present time of that moment, which is building a relationship with Arwen, coming to terms with her father Elrond, the hesitations that he had in the movie universe with his legacy and what he may need to do in the future. Because I believe that's something the movies did different from the books. Aragorn was never hesitant in the books.
So he wasn't hesitant at that time. And, because he does, when he meets Arwen, he thinks less highly of himself. Like he's really on like thinking highly of himself when he finds out his lineage, and then he meets Arwen and he's like, oh, I'm actually not as big of a deal as I thought.
And also they probably don't, they haven't cast the movie yet, so they can't call it young Aragorn because Viggo's not involved. But Hunt for Gollum tells us the time frame
it does
take place.
And like obviously like they're still cracking the story right now from the sounds of it, so like this is a fluid situation. It's not like I'm just kind of wildly speculating that maybe it doesn't turn into a full-fledged young Aragorn, which by young Aragorn I mean Aragorn pre-Lord of the Rings, like his arc before Lord of the Rings. Maybe it doesn't turn into that, but I could very well see it incorporating elements of Aragorn's background. One thing that I saw brought up, people asking about the Hunt for Gollum fan film in terms of rights and stuff in the chat, and basically there are no rights to that film because it's a fan film and it's made outside of, like, they didn't acquire like a license or anything. It's an unsanctioned fan film.
Is free and protected. You can make all the art you want. You've seen the wonderful artists on Instagram painting Tolkien works all the time. You see fan films. The limit is you just can't make money on it. So that's why the Hunt for Gollum fan film is available for free to watch on YouTube right now.
Yep.
In its entirety.
Feanor, thanks for a super chat. Opinions will always be divided. I, for one, am very excited to be spoiled with yet new Lord of the Rings material. Grateful to be part of this community. Yes, the community, like I said, Tolkien fandom, and specifically Nerd of the Rings community. Love you guys. It's really fun to be diving into this this morning with you all bright and early. It's not even noon here yet, and we have been chatting for 2 hours on this. It's fantastic. Rebecca says, so it's been decided then. Vigo comes back as Aragorn. Ian comes back as Gandalf. Well done, everyone. We did it. All right. And then we've got Andy coming back as Gollum. We're
only one of those things was confirmed.
Right. But see here, we're doing the work for it. Like they might be asking these questions in the background, and we've just talked through it for them. Like Warner Brother, like, you know, Peter, Fran, Philippa, we're working these things out for you live on YouTube. So you don't have to trouble yourself. Like, you can go back to other things. We'll figure this out. Vigo's coming back. We've decided it for you. Let's do it.
That's not true, folks. That's fake news. The only official news
that was sarcastic. They can tell when I'm being sarcastic.
Look,
they can tell when
I was sarcastic for a while. It's your time to be sarcastic.
But they don't know when you're being sarcastic. They know when I'm being sarcastic.
Okay.
All right. John Waltz, which of your documentaries would you suggest for these movies? It's thanks to this channel I've made sense of the Silmarillion. Hours well spent. Thank you so much for the super chat and that sentiment. I love hearing that the videos here on the channel help you guys get through the books and add a dimension to the books for you. I have a video on the complete travels of Aragorn, which I think will be your go-to because it covers especially that time when he's hunting down Gollum. And like I said, my favorite tidbit is when he ties Gollum to a log to swim him across the Anduin River on part of his 900-mile trek with Gollum, which just sounds like a miserable way to spend like a month of your time. Is this when Gollum has the ring or when he's being hunted for information? It is the latter. Thanks, Dan B, for the question in the super chat. It is when he's being hunted for information. So this is after Sauron has tortured him for information.
It's after the Hobbit.
Yes, it's after the Hobbit. After the Hobbit, you know, we see him say, you know, thief Boyens, we hate it forever. That whole thing. That's the last we see of Gollum. After that, he goes traveling around. He goes to Lake Town a bit, and that's where he discovers. I think that's where that might be where he discovers the name Shire, actually, in the books. Mm-hmm. But he then goes. He's kind of like drawn to Mordor. Sauron declares himself openly in Mordor, and Gollum is drawn down to Mordor. That's where he meets Shelob. Maybe we'll see Gollum meet Shelob in this. That's where he meets Shelob, gets captured by Sauron, is tortured, and then he's set loose on purpose by Sauron because Sauron knows he might cause some shenanigans and help the ring to be found by his pursuit of it. But it's during that time that Gandalf is suspecting that Bilbo's ring is the One Ring and sends Aragorn on his way to hunt for Gollum, to figure out what's going on, discover what he can about the ring, and make that final determination that Bilbo's ring is the one.
Quick shout out to the last comment said that your video on the Silmarillion helped him understand the Silmarillion. Well, if you want to research further, a friend of ours, a friend of Matt's, Tea with Tolkien, has a wonderful beginner's guide to the Silmarillion. You go to teawithtolkien.com, like drink tea, teawithtolkien.com. She has a wonderful free beginner's guide to the Silmarillion. It's wonderful. And to be clear to everyone in the chat, Silmarillion rights are not in play.
Nope.
None of these movies will be about from the Silmarillion.
That's going to come up a lot, I think. Anytime there's a new adaptation, people are like, what, is it Silmarillion? Is this No, not Silmarillion yet, guys. Someday, I'm still holding out hope. I'm holding out hope that in our lifetimes, there will be a Silmarillion project of some form or fashion. Maybe a TV show, maybe movie. Who knows? But something Silmarillion. I'm holding out hope for that. Prodigal Fraud Daddy, thanks so much for the super chat. Aragorn and Thingol to the rescue of Gondor as Thorongil. So yeah, that's the young Aragorn stuff that we're talking. He's under the guise of Thorongil, and so nobody knows that he's secretly he's like that meme where the guy's standing in the corner. Nobody knows I'm the heir of Isildur. So
Well,
he
I'm
goes in
gonna.
disguise. He serves under Rohan, under King Thingol. Then he goes and serves Ecthelion II, steward of Gondor, father of Denethor. So he could meet a young baby Boromir and Faramir maybe. And yeah, the rivalry between Denethor and Aragorn is fertile ground for adaptation, I think,
Oh yeah.
in a story like that. Like it could, I've often said, a successful prequel will enhance and not detract from your enjoyment of the original that comes after it chronologically.
I saw a bunch of
So
people jumping in the chat room saying they just joined the chat, and so the big news again. I'm happy to be a guest here with Matt. My name's Justin Sewell with the OneRing.net, and Matt was the first to break the news on the internet that Warner
close
Brothers
to, I don't know if
has
I was the first.
signed Peter Jackson to head up the next few movies of Lord of the Rings. It's official. Peter, Philippa, and Fran are back in business in Lord of the Rings. And the first movie that they've announced after this new War of the Rohirrim anime that's coming out this December, the first movie that's going into production is The Hunt for Gollum, a movie that is based between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It is about Aragorn's hunt for Gollum, literally, and it is going to be directed by Gollum himself, Andy Serkis, who has been directing some great movies like Mowgli and Venom 2. So Andy Serkis is in the director's chair. He's returning as Gollum. He's going to do a great job under the producing and supervision. And then Andy Serkis confirmed himself that WETA Workshop is back. He tagged him in the post. So WETA is fully on board and back. And as part of the second movie, and as part of this new set of movies, is the writing team of Peter Jackson, Philippa Boyens, Fran Walsh, and now the writers of Roll of the Rohirrim, Artie Papagiorgio and Phoebe Gittins are part of the writing team. And Matt, I'm going to jump because you texted me at 5:30 a.m. and I haven't started my day yet. I haven't even had coffee yet. My voice is just whatever. But my final thought, and I don't think we've talked about this yet, so maybe you can jump in after I
Yeah.
go. But the fact that in this announcement, they announced that Phoebe and Artie are part of the writing team going forward
Yeah.
gives me even more confidence in the quality of the writing and storytelling for War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think
yeah.
there's a lot of concern of like, you know, who are these unknown writers,
Mhm.
tackling Lord of the Rings? And I think that's top of mind for all fans right now. You have to get the writing right because Tolkien, first and foremost, is a great writer, one of the best writers ever. And so the fact that Warner Brothers has recognized that Artie and Phoebe, their work is so good that they're saying, here's two
Do
more
more.
movies.
Yeah.
This is a testament to the confidence that the studio has given these new writers. And I think this is, for me, that's probably the biggest secret of this announcement is that we're in for a really great time with War of the Rohirrim this Christmas because
Yeah.
Warner Brothers just gave them a 2-picture deal on this based on the
What they've
movie,
seen with Rohirrim.
what
Yeah.
they've seen. And that's a huge thing. And I want to congratulate you, Matt, for breaking the news. I want to congratulate you on getting the first interview ever with those writers, Phoebe and Artie. And I really appreciate
Well,
the community here for jumping in on this chat and being so active and asking great questions. And I
yeah.
hope I've been able to give some context and answer a few questions, clarify a few things. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for joining and hopping on bright and early out there LA time. I know you enjoy getting your beauty sleep and everything, and I and many others probably woke you up with text messages this morning at the drop of the news. Yeah, so be sure, folks, to check out Torn Tuesday every week on theonering.net here on their YouTube channel. I'll try to update with all kinds of links in the description after
Link
I
in
get done
bio.
streaming. Yeah,
Like and subscribe.
like and
Turn on
subscribe.
notifications.
Smash the like button. Smash the like button, folks. We have
Thanks,
2,400
guys.
people here. Smash the like button. And yeah, I will pick up on something that Justin said there. You know, another thing that gives me confidence about War of the Rohirrim that was interesting is the move. I've been told the move from April, it was originally supposed to come out in April of this year, and it got moved to mid-December, is that was not because they needed more time. It was because they wanted to. So, like, and Philippa talked about a bit about this in my interview with her, that it was a little daunting moving to December because there's a certain pressure and expectation that comes with that when there's a Lord of the Rings film coming out in that prime time of, you know, that pre-Christmas release. There's a lot of history there. So yeah, that combined with the fact that they're now bringing Phoebe and Artie on for further movies, it's got me more pumped for War of the Rohirrim. I was already pumped for it. I think it's a really, could be a really interesting story. It's a nice self-contained Rohan tale. Just love the Rohirrim. They have some of the best parts in those films, in the books. More Rohirrim, sign me up, man. But yeah, this it definitely displays some confidence in their writing abilities. So War of the Rohirrim, guys, don't sleep on it. During the 7th, thank you for the super chat. Prediction: the opening scene starts at the unexpected journey where Martin Freeman has just put on the ring and fled. Gollum then works through what to do and where to go next, eventually leaving the Misty Mountains. I could totally see that as I was, kind of talking through what Gollum does. It could be a nice little cameo for Lake Town too, if we see him go through Lake Town. And I could also see it picking up with him being tortured by Sauron, because that's a pretty iconic scene. And then him being turned loose, all, banged up and wounded. Or it could end up, gosh, yeah. Yeah, I think those are pretty solid guesses. It could open up totally different with Gandalf, Gandalf and Aragorn. Probably in the Prancing Pony, right? Like they I feel like if Gandalf and Aragorn were to meet, we do the Prancing Pony, maybe get a Butterbur cameo, maybe get a third Peter Jackson cameo chomping on a carrot. That's what the people really want. What's the over under, folks, on what do you think? Peter Jackson carrot eater cameo? Yes or no? Do we get it? I think we do. I'm calling it now. I think we get Peter Jackson chomping a carrot. Even if it's in the background. Maybe they'll hide it more instead of him being like right in front of the camera. Maybe they'll hide it and make us work for it. John Peacekeeper, thank you so much for the super chat. Appendices are fair game. Last I checked, they are indeed. So Eriador, Sauron in Numenor, and the Last Alliance, perhaps, differently from how Rings of Power will inevitably do it. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Technically speaking, yeah, they could go and make a Last Alliance movie or a Fall of Numenor movie. They have the rights to do it. Now, I don't think from a pure business standpoint, again, like I try to occasionally put my head in the mind space of like the casual audience. Would that just confuse people if Warner Brothers started releasing second age films As much as I would love to see them, I would love to see a Peter Jackson Last Alliance movie. Heck yeah. That prologue sequence is like one of the greatest openings of a film of all time. Heck yeah. Sign me up for that Last Alliance movie or a Fallen Numenor movie. But I wonder, if that's something better left to down the road. I think there needs to be distance maybe, because otherwise you risk like confusing people, like the more casual audience saying like, "Oh wait, do I need to watch this TV show to make sense of that?" Like you run the risk of confusing too many casuals, I think. I could be wrong. This is an exercise, this is me really stretching to put my mind in the headspace of a casual, but I think, it could confuse people. So maybe they're better sticking to third age, maybe. We'll see. Nat1 Videos, thank you so much for the super chat. Knowing that Peter Jackson, Andy Serkis, and WETA Workshop are involved fills my heart with joy. Absolutely. This is a recipe for pure gold. Matt, please put a word in with WETA for me. I want a job. Man, I'm about ready to move down to New Zealand and try my luck, man. I don't know what I could do. Do they need... I could do... Oh, I'm dropping stuff off my desk now. I guess I could YouTube from anywhere. I should YouTube from New Zealand. My wife might have some thoughts on that, but it would be an interesting change. Oh man. Yeah, no worries, guy. I will try to get any and all interviews related to this as possible for sure. No, I had an absolute blast with the folks at WETA and with Philippa and Phoebe and Artie. They're great to chat with about, their work in Middle Earth. And yeah, I hopefully we can get some of those folks on the channel in the future. Yeah, I'd love that. And I'm excited. Gosh, we have more Middle Earth movies to look forward to, and that's fun. We'll see what they end up being, what the stories end up being, and we'll check them out as they come. But I'm just getting hyped for, we'll have teasers, we'll have bits of news, we'll have casting announcements and all that fun stuff. It's a good time. Brian Rose, any thoughts on making Tolkien's never finished sequel? Well, for one thing, that comes in, I believe it's History of Middle Earth. So nobody would have the rights to it. The Tolkien estate would have the rights to that. So yeah, I would not do that, because Tolkien abandoned it because it's kind of depressing that the world falls to crap right after there was this ultimate victory. He understood that it's best left to that ultimate victory. And, to look at another nerdy franchise, it's like the happy ending at Return of the Jedi. And when you go back to that well and you open that back up, you take away that happy ending of all your heroes that was so well earned. And like, yeah, I know Tolkien's, abandoned sequel, it comes, after Aragorn has passed and everything, but you're still like, everything that they won falls apart way too fast. So yeah, no, I think anything that comes out, unless, like I said, unless it's totally detached, like the Reclamation of Moria, I think it needs to be before or concurrent to the ultimate defeat of Sauron. I don't think we go past that. Could Gollum detect when someone put on the ring? No, there's no evidence for that. So yeah, it's not like he got a ping anytime that Bilbo used the ring over in the Shire. Man, I just thought of like, Okay, so we've talked a lot about returning characters, but what if in a young Aragorn story or some other story, we get book characters that we didn't get in the films? Like I don't think there's a story that Tom Bombadil pops up in that makes sense probably, but I'm thinking like Glorfindel or Elladan and Elrohir, the sons of Elrond. What if we get them in live action for the first time? And then by extension, maybe WETA makes some sweet statues. That would be pretty cool. John Waltz, carrot eating Peter Jackson for the win. Yes. Adam wants to cast me as a dwarf. Sold. I'll do it. You twist my arm, I'll do it. I'm sure they have much more accomplished and talented people to cast than me. That's for sure. Amanda working on a fanfic that might work for Tom. Interesting. Interesting. I'm very curious. I wonder if I would assume you work in the Barrow Whites, probably, maybe. All right. I will give. Let's give the breakdown one more time. I saw a couple people asking, and here we just got a super chat from Pingu. Just got here. Need to know what's going on. All right. So this morning, roughly 3 hours ago. Wow, 3 hours ago. During a conference call to investors, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav announced that Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens are returning to Middle-earth, producing a new film. Since then, we have discovered that the first of these films is going to be The Hunt for Gollum, starring and directed by Andy Serkis. And Andy Serkis in his Instagram post did tag WETA. So presumably that means WETA Workshop and WETA FX, that being the practical and digital effects houses, respectively, will be back. And also that it presumably would be shot in New Zealand. So that... Oh, and also it is being written by Walsh, Boyens, and War of the Rohirrim screenwriters Artie Papagiorgio and Phoebe Gittins. Sorry. Starting to stumble over my words here. It's been a long stream so far. All right. So there you go. Pingu, you are caught up. Souljo1, thanks for the super chat. 100% agree, no new Shadow. Star Wars Legends and canon cheapen Anakin's arc sacrifice into something that earned maybe a decade of peace. See, that's what, and I'm not going to sit here on my Middle Earth channel and relitigate the Star Wars films. But for me, anytime you do a sequel of a beloved film that has this great ending for its characters, you have to ask yourself, does this new story, is it worth taking away that happy ending and having that not be the ultimate ending? For me, with the Star Wars movie, the answer was definitely no. Like I much prefer it to just be an ultimate victory there. I don't think what they did afterward validated that, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day and probably another channel. MK Matt, thoughts on potentially de-aging Vigo for this? We covered this earlier. I personally, I hope that it's not like full on crazy de-aging like you see, again, like in the aforementioned Star Wars movies where like Rogue One, they had the Leia, it's too uncanny valley for me. Now, if you want to de-age Vigo a bit with some practical effects, maybe some light CG to like de-age a little bit. Like, I don't think you need to go crazy with it. Like, he doesn't need to look exactly like he does in the Lord of the Rings films. Like, he's older. We can suspend our disbelief, I think. That is not news. Like, there's not news that Vigo is returning. This is all hypothetical. This is us wishful thinking that please bring Vigo back. I'm on board with that. Imrahil. That would be, I don't know how that would fit into any of the timelines we're talking about, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Imrahil would fit. I'd have to go look and see, would he be old enough to pop up in like a young Aragorn thing? I don't know that he would. Well, yeah, because Denethor is around. And he's probably around the same age as Denethor. So there we go. Yeah, they did already substitute Arwen for Glorfindel in the thing. Saving Frodo from the Nazgul kind of thing. But yeah, we'll work Glorfindel in some other way, maybe. Do you think Gandalf will go for the hunt or Sauron? Maybe. I think that's what you meant there. I don't know if Gandalf himself will go on the hunt. If I had to guess, he's probably going to be more like, sending Aragorn on this hunt. This is a great question. Is this an original story from scratch, not from J.R.R.? No, this would be from, again, this isn't like fully fleshed out stories. Like, there's not a book, Hunt for Gollum. What there is in the appendices, it's described what Aragorn did hunting for Gollum, and there's tales of Aragorn when he was younger, and it's bits and pieces. There's timelines, there's, little paragraphs, there's some dialogue here and there for all these stories that are in the appendices. If you've read Lord of the Rings and you stop with "I'm back," when Sam says "I'm back," and that's all the farther you've gotten, you need to go back and read more, because there is a treasure trove of interesting stories and morsels of stories. So it's going to be, whatever they do will be an expansion. Like, they're going to have to come up with original dialogue and original story beats and everything for most of the stories that are in the appendices. But they are from the nuggets of information that Tolkien gave us. So it's not just a straight up adaptation in the way Lord of the Rings is from the Lord of the Rings books. We don't have that much written on any of these stories, but they are not completely whole cloth from scratch either. Polar Gear Podcast says, need Aragorn and Arwen movie ending with Vigo and Liv at Aragorn's death scene. Oh, yeah. I mean, that death scene is epic, though. It's a little bit of a downer, but it's real good. If you guys haven't read The Tale of Aragorn and Arwen in the appendices, you gotta check it out. You gotta read it. It's fantastic. Sorry, trying to keep up with both. I've got the super chats on one tab and the regular chat on the other. A Baron and Luthien film would be great. There's so many great things that could come of a Silmarillion adaptation, but it is not this day. There may come a day when the Silmarillion is adapted, but it is not this day. Flower Moon Fairy, thanks for the super sticker. I'd be much more interested in seeing something about the first stage. There we go. First stage again. First stage. Like Children of Hurin era. Children of Hurin is one of my favorite stories. Can you imagine Glaurung on the big screen? Glaurung might just be my favorite villain in all of Tolkien. He's so despicable, and I love it. Luis Montez, do you think they could retro in a scouring while adding in the Battle of Dale and Battle Under Trees to round up a follow-up movie? So I think the latter two of those, you totally could. That's the War in the North idea that I really, really want. That I think would be awesome. Scouring, I feel like I don't think you could do with the way the films went. I think that was pretty decidedly left out, and I think to add that back in would be really cumbersome, and I don't think it would fit with the rest of it. Like it would totally change the way the Lord of the Rings films flow. And I think any concurrent timeline stories that you tell, like the latter two there, like the War in the North story, they would have to tread lightly with the existing Lord of the Rings films. I don't think you do that and like something that's going to drastically change how you look at the Lord of the Rings films. Like there I would imagine, and again, this is just my speculation, but I would imagine if you're looking at the legacy of those films, you don't want to mess with the legacy of those films by totally changing the ending. Like, psych, actually, the Shire was destroyed um, by Saruman. So, whoops, we didn't tell you that before, but here's a new movie. Surprise, the Shire was destroyed. I don't think that would work, but I think there's great potential in the other two. Need more nameless thingses. Nameless thingses. Yes, precious. Yes. Maybe in a Balin's Company in Moria movie. Could get more nameless things. Thorongil over Gollum any day. I mean, so you're saying you would rather see a Thorongil, like a young Aragorn, than a Gollum story. And like I said, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think that, like, it's titled Hunt for Gollum, but I don't know that Gollum is a bank for being the main character of the story. Like, I think Vigo would make a lot of sense. Or I'm sorry, Aragorn. They're synonymous at times. Yeah, but I think Aragorn would make a lot of sense for main character. Prodigal Fraud Daddy, thanks again for the super chat. Its story is between Keep It Secret, Keep It Safe, and Is It Secret, Is It Safe, a Fellowship movie. It's Aragorn on a 900-mile hunt sent by Gandalf on the way to Gondor, making a pit stop at Bree to talk Aragorn. Yeah, that could totally be the exact timeline it falls. Although in the movies they do condense the Keep It Secret, Keep It Safe, and Is It Secret, Is It Safe. That's like a 17-year period, from Bilbo's party to Frodo going on the adventure, that they condense quite a bit. And they kind of, Gandalf kind of go, which, that would obviously take some time. Gandalf going all the way to Gondor to research, but it's definitely severely condensed for that time period, which makes sense because if you're like 17 years past, it doesn't come off as very urgent in a movie where you're trying to kickstart things into gear. And it's like, oh yeah, 17 years later. I get that change. But yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe Gandalf leaves after saying keep it secret, keep it safe, meets Aragorn at Bree, prancing pony. In the background, Peter Jackson chomps a carrot, and then Aragorn goes to hunt Gollum while Gandalf goes to Gondor. Yeah, I could see it. Josh Matney, thanks so much for the super chat. Love your channel, man. You've expanded my love of the lore of Tolkien. Wanted to ask what your true thoughts are on them making more movies. Is it good for Tolkien lore or end up like Rings of Power? I mean, time will tell how good these movies are, right? Like, we don't know until we know. I have always thought the thing that I love about Tolkien, that I think is a major advantage of Tolkien, is that the original is in book form. and that nothing will ever tarnish those books. They could come out with the worst possible adaptations, movies, TV, video games, whatever, and it doesn't change the books in the slightest for me. Not one bit. And like more movies could come out and like more TV shows, they could be decent, they could be horrible, they could be fantastic. And it won't change the fact that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is are my favorite films of all time. So like, and I've said this before too here on the channel. You can't get good adaptations if no adaptations are being made. You know, like I think it's fun. I think it's fun to get adaptations, and you know, I judge them as they come out. You know, I did. If you're curious of my thoughts on Rings of Power, I did an hour and 15-minute long review. I'm not gonna, you know, reiterate that here. Needless to say, I've got thoughts on it, but at the end of the day, like, you know, we're not going to get good adaptations if no adaptations are being made. So I don't buy into the idea that um these books shouldn't be touched, or that there can't be more Middle Earth stories beyond Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Um Tolkien's world is massive, and it's unlike anything else, and it has unique qualities to it that make it every bit as relevant today as they were when they were written. And there are universal themes and truths in those in those books that resonate with people over generations. And there's a beauty to them that is unique. And if we can get a taste of that in adaptations, and you know, we can always hope, like, who knows if lightning gets strikes twice and we get another masterpiece. Who knows? But I know we won't get it if it's not made, if there's not chances being taken. So, yeah. Right now I'm excited. And nothing will tarnish the books. And I am excited about the new people who will come to the books through new adaptations being made. So yeah, there you go. That's my 2 cents. Jayashina, thank you so much for the super chat. Will you be interviewing Peter Jackson? I would be thrilled if you do it, and will mark my calendar for it. Hey, I would love to interview Peter Jackson. It was a huge honor to chat with Philippa Boyens when I was down in New Zealand, and to interview her, as well as Phoebe and Artie. But like Philippa is someone who wrote my favorite movies of all time. That was fantastic. Loved it. And to chat with her about that, and you know, future endeavors with War of the Rohirrim was awesome. So yeah, I would love to interview Peter Jackson. Who knows? You know, I never would have dreamed that this channel would be as big as it is today, or that I would have the pleasure of speaking to all the amazing people involved in Middle Earth in one way or another that I've gotten to chat with. So, you know, maybe someday that'd be awesome. Besides a Second Age trilogy of Eregion, Numenor, and Last Alliance, Beren and Luthien are mentioned in Lord of the Rings if we want a romance adventure movie. Okay, so first of all, I do think Eregion, Numenor, Last Alliance would be a pretty good trilogy. Like, I think that breaks up pretty darn well into a trilogy of movies if they ever decided to go that route. Now, there's a rights issue here brought up that I think is an important distinction that not a lot of people realize. Beren and Luthien are mentioned in Lord of the Rings. That's why Aragorn in the extended edition is able to name drop Luthien and Beren and sing that song that he sings. However, they cannot adapt the story of Beren and Luthien, because the main body of that story in its most complete form does not exist in Lord of the Rings. So like if the story of Beren and Luthien was fully recounted, and its most complete form was in the Appendices, then yes, they could do that. But it's not. It's in the Silmarillion, and it's in Beren and Luthien, the dedicated book to Beren and the versions of the Beren and Luthien story. So because it's in the Silmarillion, they can't adapt Beren and Luthien. They can mention them because the names appear, and they can mention them in the context that Aragorn does in the books, stuff similar to that, but they can't adapt it. There's a very solid, firm line there. All right. Who is Josiah? I wouldn't be shocked with like 20 minutes of young Aragorn, then a sharp jump forward, origin story plus a quest with characters we know and love. Yeah, I could see that being, a bit of a, working in of that young Aragorn story, like I was saying before. I could totally see that. Thanks so much. Oh, who is Josiah with another super chat? Thank you so much. I adore Rings of Power. I am happy for you, man. I am glad that you enjoyed Rings of Power. I wouldn't say that I adored it. Again, I have an hour and 15-minute long review if you really want to dive into that. Yeah, I thought there were some things that were great about it, like those practical effects orcs. Always love those. Music, I really enjoyed Bear McCreary's music. I think story-wise was the big fallback for me. Yeah. So I'm not going to relitigate the Rings of Power. There's a super long-winded review if you're interested in that. 25th anniversary of Lord of the Rings, Dale Lothlorien battles? ? Thank you so much, Polar Gear Podcast, for that super chat. Yeah, that won't be for the 25th anniversary. Like that story won't be told because this Hunt for Gollum one will. But yeah, it's kind of cool that it'll come out, and it makes me wonder, like, could we get that Mithril edition of Lord of the Rings with all those wonderful deleted scenes, either restored or not restored within the movie? I'm flexible. Peter Jackson, if you're listening, I'm flexible. You can just put the deleted scenes as a special feature. I'd be happy. Please give me the Mithril edition. But yeah, no, it'll be cool to have a movie coming out 25 years after Fellowship. Maybe we get that Mithril edition first, leading into the new film, and then we get to celebrate 25 years of Fellowship. Bellin, I just want to say I love your channel. Thanks so much. Appreciate that, Bellin. Thank you for the super chat. Kneedwords says, what about a flashback of Deagle's banishment, an opportunity for on-camera live-action Serkis? So you mean Smeagol's. Deagle was the one who Smeagol killed for the precious. Yes. But yeah, maybe we get some flashback scenes. I don't know if there's much more to tell there that wasn't, that wasn't already told in the flashbacks we got at the beginning of Return of the King. I think that kind of summed up his banishment and everything. Like there's not, and I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Yeah. I'm guessing that we've probably seen, like we have Gollum's backstory. Like, yeah, it's not fully fleshed out where, we're meeting like his grandmother or anything like that, who's the matriarch. But yeah, I don't know if there's enough meat on that bone to make a whole story out of. Maybe briefly if it's to like remind people or to catch up casual audience, but yeah. I don't know. We'll see. How much of an impact do you think the Narnia movies will have on Lord of the Rings adaptations? Do you agree with Into the Wardrobe? I don't know what I don't know what my buddy Stuart over at Into the Wardrobe has said to know whether I should agree with him or not. Maybe if you can type in the general chat, I'll try to keep an eye on both. to let me know what he said. I don't think the Narnia movies will have an impact. I haven't seen if Narnia has announced where they're filming those movies, like if they're in New Zealand or something. I know WETA was involved the first time around. I saw some of the designs while I was down there. They were really cool, for Aslan and some of the armor and everything and the weapons. But I don't know if they're doing the next one, the Greta Gerwig ones. Yeah, I don't know that they would have an effect. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think they'll just be doing their own separate thing, because now, Narnia's on Netflix is the ones doing those. And this is more, yeah. I don't think they'll be, except that we'll have Tolkien and Lewis adaptations coming out around the same time, which will be pretty fun. We'll see. I'm very curious about the Narnia movies, though, how that's going to go. Higgy. I don't watch them right away. Okay. I watch Into the Wardrobe stuff. I just don't necessarily watch them all the way. I have a backlog of videos. You guys know how it goes. Come on. All right, Grant. This is for you, Grant, saying, just dropping in, what's the context of this? So I'll give it to you one more time, guys, and then we'll probably wrap it up here in a little bit, maybe. We'll see how hopping this chat continues to be. We still have over 2,000 people here, which is awesome. Be sure to hit the like button, folks. That really helps. And yeah, and subscribe and check out my vids, all that stuff. But the news today, for those who may have missed it or come in late, we are now sitting at 14 months after Warner Brothers announced that they had made a deal to make multiple films based in Middle-earth, live-action films. And today we just got news during Warner Brothers Discovery's quarterly investor call that Peter Jackson, Philippa Boyens, and Fran Walsh are returning to produce a new film in Middle-earth. And we have since discovered that it is tentatively titled, the working title is Hunt for Gollum, and it will be directed and starring none other than Mr. Andy Serkis. And we've also discovered, this coming from Variety, reporting that the writers for this film will be the aforementioned Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, along with the screenwriters from the upcoming War of the Rohirrim, which comes out in December of this year, Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio. And if you guys haven't seen it, I have an interview here on the channel from when I was in New Zealand, and I chatted with Philippa, Artie, and Phoebe about War of the Rohirrim. So definitely check that out. If you're curious about War of the Rohirrim, and if you are curious to hear from Artie and Phoebe, we talk a lot about War of the Rohirrim, but also just about adapting Tolkien in general. I thought it was a really great conversation. And it was a lot of fun chatting with them. So yeah, check it out and hear from the screenwriters, not only of War of the Rohirrim, but also Hunt for Gollum. So there you go. Squab Bob, thanks so much for the super chat. I think for sure Andy is going to again give us a young Smeagol flashback. Maybe we do get a young Smeagol. I guess it kind of depends on what the focus is. If it ends up being focused more on Gollum and the tragedy of his story, or if it focuses more on, like I said, the people hunting Gollum, presumably Aragorn. We'll see. Travis Romine, thanks so much for the super chat. Never would have found Kip Rasmussen's art without your channel. Kip does some amazing art. I'm so glad you discovered it through here. Fell in love with the music of the Ainur artwork. Yeah, that's awesome. And got it tattooed on my leg. Nice. Kip even saw and exchanged some nice words with me. Oh, that's awesome, man. I think that's the first I've heard of someone discovering artwork through the channel and then getting it tattooed on them. Excuse me. Sorry. All right. Let's see here. We have I've got lots of windows going on here. One of my mods just asked was bringing up, people are asking what the plot of the movie could be. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but basically, again, this is all speculation, but it could be hunting down Gollum to find out what he knows about Bilbo's ring and to try to determine if it is the One Ring. So, from the time where Gandalf suspects that Bilbo's ring might be the One Ring, from there, he enlists Aragorn in the books. He enlists Aragorn to help him find Gollum. And so Aragorn goes on this hunt for Gollum. And as part of that, he has to travel with him 900 miles from the Dead Marshes where he finds him all the way up to Thranduil's realm in Mirkwood. So broad strokes, that could be what we're looking at. 640391. Thanks so much for the super chat. Do we know who's scoring these new films? We do not. We know that Stephen Gallagher is scoring War of the Rohirrim, the one that comes out in December, but no word yet on whether maybe it's Stephen who will do this new film. Maybe they'll bring back Howard Shore. It's hard to say. We will know when we know, I guess. I also wonder, we've kind of gotten confirmation because Andy Serkis did tag WETA in his Instagram post about returning for this film. We do kind of have confirmation there that WETA will be back involved in these. Presumably they'll be filmed in New Zealand, which is fantastic. Will John Howe Allen Lee be back? Will Howard Shore be back? Will we get some awesome art books? That's what I want to know. We need to get Daniel Falconer on those art books. Get started. All right. Darth Inkling sent you a Silmarillion poem I wrote in your Discord. Would love your feedback. Hey, I will check that out, man. Yeah, I'll pull that up, open up my Discord after we get off the stream here. All right. Well, with that, guys, I think we will wrap up this stream. Thank you so much for joining. We've had almost 2,000 people the entire time that we've been streaming for 3 hours. This is exciting news. At the end of the day, I am excited because, I mean, Peter, Fran, and Philippa, they made what I consider to be the best trilogy of all time in the Lord of the Rings films. Knowing that is the high watermark and that is something that you can't take that away. Like, no matter how you feel about the Hobbit films, I defend them more than I think, a lot of people do, because I think there's still really good heart in those films and they're cast really well. And there's some pitfalls to be sure, but I like a lot in those films. Smaug is fantastic. I love Smaug in those films. Yeah, knowing what they're capable of gets me excited. And the idea that, like we said earlier, I don't think they come back if it's not going to be a healthy working situation with the studio and stuff. Like, it's been well documented, the aforementioned Hobbit films, that it wasn't the most ideal situation, and they were really pressed on time, and they were just kind of playing catch up a lot. I don't think they walk into these new films if that's the situation they're walking into. So I'm excited. I am pumped. We'll see. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm following along with the chat. There's a wide range of emotions going on. And that's what happens with any announcement. Christopher Carbaugh, 2026 will be Rings of Power season 3. Hopefully it will be much better and at heights of the story by then. Plus this new movie from Peter and the team. This is a great time for Tolkien fandom. It is a fun time, man, to have adaptations. Multiple adaptations on the horizon is fun. Yeah. Yeah, if you've missed, go back to the very beginning if you've missed stuff. But yeah, the king is returned. The return of the king. Peter Jackson is back. That's the highlight, along with Fran and Philippa. Not to minimize Fran and Philippa. Return of the King is just really catchy as a headline. But Peter, Fran, and Philippa are back. Andy Serkis is back for a new Hunt for Gollum movie. Working title, Hunt for Gollum. Soul Joe would love more of these live streams. Next week, guys, I will be live streaming. We're going to have a really fun live stream next week. I've been getting into the Middle-earth strategy battle game. This is my little Rohirrim archer. So I'm going to have a really chill stream here next week. I've got, some thoughts on remembering Bernard Hill. We didn't discuss that today because this was I felt like I wanted to keep that for this stream as I planned, but I have some thoughts on Bernard Hill's passing and just what that character means to me and has meant to me and will continue to mean. And just remembering him and having a fun chill time with you guys, talking about probably this and other things. But yeah, I'll be painting some minifigures. Have a nice close-up camera for you guys to see my first attempt at painting Middle-earth strategy battle game figures. So could be interesting. We'll see. All right, guys. We're back in business. New films coming from the New Zealanders who brought us Lord of the Rings, who brought us The Hobbit, and I'm pumped. Yep. I'm pumped. That's the end. That's the summary. Nerd of the Rings is pumped for new Middle-earth films from the team that brought us Lord of the Rings. Let's do it. Let's dive in. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and all that good stuff that YouTubers say anytime they're doing anything. And we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.